चलो. we had we had a student's parent yesterday, and she said that I look too young to be a teacher. So मैंने कहा नहीं वैसे, but just a few days before I had a long beard. Anyway, so let us begin. Today is the first day of our history module, and also the first day for some of you as a new batch. So what I'm supposed to do is to discuss the overall strategy for a few minutes in the beginning, and then we shall discuss history as a subject. ठीक है? About the history as a subject, or rather about GS foundation, I just wanted to discuss handful of things. Why? Because every now and then I see that students tend to commit same mistakes again and again, and they realize that these are mistakes after 1 year or 2 years. Once, most often what happens is that आप पूरा फाउंडेशन कोर्स कर लेते हो, एक साल तक कोचिंग कर लेते हो, लेक्चर्स कर लेते हो वेरी डिलीजेंटली, and once the course is about to get over, most of you realize that acha, I am not prepared for the exam, let me prepare for 1 more year and then I will appear for prelims. हमें ये नहीं करना है. We should avoid this fate. Our objective is that in next few months we should be ready for both prelims and mains. पहले अटेम्प्ट में डर नहीं लगना चाहिए, अच्छे से क्लियर होना चाहिए. So we have to understand what is the requirement, what is the input. Am I audible online clearly to everybody? Hmm. So the first thing first, एक तो अभी रिजल्ट आया है, and lots of toppers are there and we keep discussing lots of things. We have about 200 plus toppers so far from various classroom courses itself. But I would want to caution you against watching lots of toppers talks, to be very honest. The toppers may have been very good in their subject, in their preparation, and they may have cleared the exam very well with very high numbers also. But that does not make them automatically enough self critical. Some of them may very well be self critical, some of them may not be. कई बार होता क्या है कि nothing succeeds like success. So there is a tendency to talk about things which may not be very accurate also. So कुछ टॉपर टॉक्स देख लिए, कुछ आइडिया ले ली, काम हो गया. लेट अस मूव ऑन. And if you are focusing on topper stock for strategy, that is what I am discussing about. If you are focusing on topper stock for motivation, so beyond a point we don't need external motivation. एक लिमिट होती है. What we need is consistency and discipline. So don't consume lots of topper stock, save your time. दो चार पांच देख लिए, कुछ पॉइंट्स मिल गए, आगे चलो. That is one. Secondly, what would it take to clear this exam, and what we will do over next 1.5 year? The first thing is to complete the syllabus comprehensively. Now, this thing is very obvious. Everybody says that, and almost nobody does that. I am not joking. I am very honest. मैं यहाँ पे पिछले 12 साल से पढ़ा रहा हूँ, and no, almost no foundation course would be comprehensive. And why? It's not that because they don't want to. It's a very long process. There comes at a point of time certain kind of complications, problems, and लोग उसको निपटा देते हैं. हमें वो नहीं करना है. So we will be on time from the very beginning. The entire duration of the course will be about 1,000 hours. It takes GS 1, 2, 3, 4 current affairs at least 1,000 hours to cover everything properly. In that, we have phases. We first finish the first four basic subjects: history, geography, polity, economy, and then we go for second tier subjects. Why do we do so? Because these four basic subjects are a foundation of the foundation. These subjects create foundation to understand other subjects. For example, we can't study governance before we study polity. And likewise, it is same for other subjects. We can't study agriculture before we finish economy. तो एक तो ये फाउंडेशन ऑफ फाउंडेशन है, एंड सेकेंडली दीज आर द फोर सब्जेक्ट्स विच आर कॉमन टू बोथ प्रीलिम्स एंड मेंस. So they actually are exam point of view से भी maximum important. तो ऑलमोस्ट प्रीलिम के 40-45 सवाल यहाँ से आने ही आने हैं, कम से कम। And in mains B, almost half the question papers will be from these topics. So to cover history, geography, polity, economy, it generally takes about 4 to 5 months. तो अगर अपना पूरा ड्यूरेशन 10-12 महीने का होता है, उसमें से आधा टाइम will go in these 4 subjects and in बचा आधा टाइम will go in second order subjects. That is first thing. You have to do it very comprehensive. Then secondly, while doing so, we have to focus on concepts, interlinkages, and also we have to be able to have the crisp notes on every part of syllabus. अब ये बहुत लंबी प्रोसेस है. Now, how do you clear concepts? It is about teaching quality, and we would do that. Don't worry about it in the class. Interlinkages are not very apparent to all of you from the very beginning. History to geography, geography to economy, इसका time लगता है थोड़ा सा. Once you are halfway through the course, they become very apparent and they become very intuitive. But we shall do that. Crisp notes, again, we always have to understand that yes, this exam will require you to go through at least 18 to 20 subjects. आप कम से कम 4-5 BA कर रहे हो apart from your optional का BA plus MA minus level. So it has to be revisable. That is possible only when for every bit in the syllabus we have proper crisp note. That is our another objective in the class. Then after that we have one more point, PYQs. This is extremely, extremely, extremely important. Any single day, you are studying for 12 hours and not looking at PYQ is the day wasted. वो पढ़ाई बेकार है. Before the class, after the class, before the revision, after the revision, every single day of that chapter, you have to look at the PYQ or prelims and mains both. What I would intend to do in the class is that when we cover entire history, we will cover all the PYQs of last 15-20 years in the class of both prelims and mains. ठीक है, so वो तो हम कर लेंगे, but that doesn't end there. You have to go through them again and again and again and again to let them seep in your mind. This is extremely important. I've seen people who go through many lectures, बाद में questions देख लेंगे. ऐसे नहीं होता. Questions शुरू में देखने, शुरुआत वहां से हो. Is starting point and that is the ending. बीच में क्लासेस नोट्स सब कुछ आ जाएगा, टेस्ट वगैरह. PYQs आर द स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट, PYQs आर द एंड पॉइंट. सारी उसके अंदर दुनिया समेटी होगी. एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट. नाउ अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट वी हैव टू लुक एट सर्टेन अदर फैक्टर्स. एक तो सम ऑफ यू मे बी वेरी गुड इन technical background. Maybe you have given some exams like GATE or CAT or GRE or something, and you would not find it difficult to appear for CSAT. But there is a large majority of you who would find CSAT very difficult. So CSAT has recently emerged as an important hurdle in the prelims over last 5 years. Uh, we have to cover it thoroughly. We'll give it almost 4 to 5 months. It is not the game of knowledge, game of practice. Game of practice. So don't take CSAT lightly at all. We have a very good faculty and we'll cover that in the class thoroughly. There is one part that is often overlooked and which is essay. People always say कि आप GS 1 2 3 4 कर लो, then essay automatically is on your fingertips. सारे facts में से लेने हैं, बस लिखने हैं. Well, it doesn't happen that way. UPSC asks essay in a different type. Part 1 में philosophical essay होते हैं, Part 2 में philosophical भी होते हैं और भी होते हैं. Essay writing is a different kind of skill. We generally don't have habit of writing long answers in GS anymore. GS में पहले सवाल 60 markers आते थे, खत्म हो गए. Now they ask 10 markers and 15 markers, and we write in bullet point. It means we have not developed that skill of writing paragraphs after paragraphs of 10-15 pages and hold the attention of the reader. तो उसके लिए भी अलग skill चाहिए. We have Chakravarti sir and we'll do it very thoroughly. Understand that essay is not merely about content, it is about the skill of writing. That also develops over time. हर दिन लेक्चर किए इवॉल्व हुआ नहीं होता. It is also the game of skill, and game of skill requires skill building. That's a gradual process. Same like CSAT. Then we have most importantly current affair. Current affair. Now all of you know Santosh sir already. So in the month of May, June, we'll start current affairs every weekend. And some of the classes might be taken earlier also, but from this May, June onwards till next 1.5 year, it will be every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, we have current affairs class. The way we will cover them is not कि इस हफ्ते में क्या हुआ. We don't want to focus on weekly news or daily news. That is not how it works. You should keep reading newspapers every day for 1 hour maybe. But apart from that, what we do in current affairs is to compile the data from at least 5 to 7 sources, arrange it thematically, arrange it as per the syllabus points, and then cover those themes one by one. If you're doing agriculture, तो agriculture में पिछले एक साल में क्या हुआ इकट्ठा देख लेंगे. You should not separate the static portion from current portion. If you do that, it becomes very hard. So our current affair classes will be designed that way, and Santosh sir will take them. They will be very comprehensive. But ये तो हुआ हमें करना क्या है, हम करेंगे क्या. Apart from that, there are certain things that people don't talk about, but and you also find them कि अभी क्यों करें बाद में देखते हैं, but they are extremely important. तो नहीं चूकना है. The first thing is the revision. Revision. Generally, this is a very boring thing, but this is the sine qua non of preparation. We have to do revision every day from day one. And I'm not joking. आपको लगा अभी हिस्ट्री कर लेते हैं, ऑलरेडी तो हो गई है. Things will evaporate very quickly. If you're studying for 10 hours a day, you have to reserve at least 1 hour for revision. And this is, I cannot emphasize it less. You have to maintain a logbook. मैंने किस दिन क्या पढ़ा, and if you have read some topic long ago, it's been too long, you might forget it. पढ़ लो. It is not that you are preparing for exam in the month of May 2027. उस तरह नहीं है. You are preparing for exam every single day. अगर मैं आपकी एग्जाम कल लूँ तो कल तक जो सिलेबस पढ़ाया है, for that syllabus you should be ready for UPSC prelims and UPSC main. That is how it goes. That is how it has to go. Revision might sound very boring sometimes कि क्या बोर हो रहा है, but the kind of job you're appearing is also little bit boring. आप you're trying to gain bureaucracy. Now, bureaucracy में generally, if your career is 30-35 years, at least half the career you might not be doing very dramatic job. At least half the duration. 10-15 साल तो आप थोड़ा बोरिंग काइंड ऑफ जॉब होगा ही होगा. लेट्स से यू आर आईपीएस. आईपीएस के हायरार्की में द मिडिल हायरार्की जो होती है, टिल द टाइम यू आर एसपी, इट इज वेरी एक्सिलरेटिंग. वंस यू गो बियॉन्ड एसपी, यू गो एट मिडिल लेवल, थोड़ा आराम होता है, ज़्यादा काम नहीं होता. एंड वंस यू गो एट हायर लेवल, अगेन यू बिकम वेरी रिस्पॉन्सिबल. बीच वाले 10 साल होते हैं वहाँ पे आईपीएस हायरार्की में थोड़े बोरिंग ही होते हैं. पीपल आर अवेलेबल. So that is, you understand that it's a rigor, the rigor that matters. You have to revise every day, and to help you revise every day or every week, we have tests on every weekend, a weekly test, monthly test, etc. Now those tests have to be taken extremely seriously, and if I can have 1 star of anything, it is this thing. आप lecture करें ना करें, I don't care. You have to give tests. Now, earlier I used to teach somewhere else. We used to teach for entire year, and what we happened that we had the monthly, weekly test system, but after 3 to 4 months, almost 80% students would drop out. नहीं लिखेंगे answer. It's not easy to write answers. It's not easy to keep appearing for test every Sunday, Sunday after Sunday for entire year. That is what has to happen. That is अगर आप टेस्ट मिस कर रहे हो, you are not doing justice to your preparation. Test will help you revise things. Not only revise things, test will help you to remember what you are forgetting. Okay, that is also there. But what I find more important is that tests improve comprehension. You might do some errors in the class कि भाई देखो ये मेरे आंसर गलत हो गए. अच्छा मैंने क्या पढ़ा था? मैंने ठीक से नहीं पढ़ा था. Let me go back. Or maybe you write one answer, and while writing, I'll tell you my experience that I had read this book of history. I thought, let me write one answer. When I read one single page, I just closed the book. Then I started to write an answer on that page. वहाँ पे जो सवाल था. I could not. Just after closing the book, I went back to the book. Then I saw कि मैंने underline क्या किया था. All the things that I underlined were interesting facts, but they were not useful for answer writing. The lines which I thought are very obvious, ये तो सबको पता है, इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है, are the perfect lines that I could have used for introduction or conclusion. So when I'm reading the notes, when I'm listening to class, when I'm reading the book, I thought something is more important that was not important for the exam. And what I thought something is not important was actually important for the answer writing. अब ये मुझे कब पता चला? When I failed at answer writing. So when you appear for tests, when you do answer writing practice, it is a feedback mechanism to upgrade your quality of comprehension. तो मैं ये बता इसलिए रहा हूँ because there is a misconception that let me know everything, let me accumulate knowledge, let me get content, let me do classes, then I will test myself. That is a misconception. You have, it's a cyclical process. You test, you read, you test, you read. It has to go cyclically only. It does not work one directionally. पहले समझो फिर एक्सप्रेस करो, नहीं एक्सप्रेस करो, फेल हो जाओ, फिर समझो. दैट इज द वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. आपको हर संडे टेस्ट देनी है और देनी है. Now, specifically, let me discuss about answer writing for a moment. It is a big hurdle for many people at mains level because we don't have practice. Some of you may come from medical background, engineering background, legal background. हमें आंसर लिखना आता नहीं. But आंसर का मतलब हमारे मतलब क्या होता है कि भाई what is the conclusion? What is the final point? If it's a mathematical equation, मैंने आंसर निकाला. अब कैसे निकाला? Is it by method A or method B? Did I write all the steps in between or skip some steps? Or maybe it doesn't matter what I do. आंसर सही निकला है, मुझे नंबर मिलने चाहिए. That is our general approach. It is totally inconsequential and problematic for UPSC. UPSC does not work that like that. UPSC में conclusion is relatively less important. It is important, but it is not as important as the approach. What approach you take, what dimensions you open up, how you develop your argument, that is how you structure your answer, is as important or more important than conclusion. ये में आदत नहीं होती है. We are not accustomed to that. If I tell you the same question can have 2 or 3 totally different answers, and all of them can be equally valid. All of them may have different structures, different facts, still they may fetch equal good marks. 6 out of 10, all 3 of them without sharing common point. Can you believe that? Can happen. It generally happens that way. So इसका मतलब है कि there is no one single standard answer. There is no one model answer. You have to develop your thinking process. And once it is subjective, it is not totally subjective, but it is kind of subjective. So it takes practice to do answer writing, to build that confidence, to build that approach. So we have to understand, पहले 200 questions are going to be kachra. Now it's up to you. When do you want to start writing and finish that first 200 questions? Maybe you start today, and in next 2-3 months you have crossed that barrier, and now you're comfortable in writing good answers. Maybe you keep postponing it till the time course is over, and then you take one extra year to do that. That phase is unavoidable. Get it done through as soon as possible. In my mother tongue, there is a muhavra, there is a phrase कि मेलो कोमड़ा आगिला भेत नहीं, है ना. देयर इज अ मुर्गा, एक बार मर गया तो आग से नहीं डरता. तो आपको जो हेजिटेशन हो, जो शर्म हो मन में, सब निकाल दो, बेशरम हो जाओ. It happens a lot that I think I am very scholar, I know lots of things, let me write answer, but when I write answer on the page it doesn't look good. तो एक किस्म से लगता है अजीब, मैं अभी नहीं लिखूंगा, लेट मी हैव बेटर नॉलेज, देन आई विल राइट. इट हैज टू बी परफेक्ट फ्रॉम डे वन. इट विल नेवर बी परफेक्ट फ्रॉम डे वन. It is a process. It takes months. Start as soon as possible. Get over your hesitation and shame and start writing. So what I will do in our classes, starting from maybe day or two, I'll give you one question every day as a homework. You have to submit it. I'll give you 5 to 10 MCQs and one question to write every single day. आपको लिखना ही लिखना है. Will get evaluated also. But without that, there is no future. Everyday MCQ, everyday PYQ, everyday answer writing has to happen. Class passively consume karna is not gonna help. It's not a knowledge acquisition exam. Then there are certain things apart from that. We have tests. I also discussed answer writing. I want to discuss a few things. Firstly, the syllabus is quite vast and dynamic, and it is designed that way purposefully because UPSC wants you to understand the syllabus will never be completely complete. It is bottomless. The more you dive deeper, you understand that भाई ये भी कर लेते हैं, ये भी अच्छा लग रहा है, ये कहीं काम को आएगा. It is endless process and you should be okay with it. You will never have that feeling जो आपको 10th में या 12th में होता था कि syllabus पूरा हो गया है. That feeling is not possible. You can cover all the points of syllabus thoroughly, comprehensively, completely, yet you feel अरे इसके बाद और कुछ करे तो अच्छा होगा. Everyday न्यूज़पेपर में कुछ नया करंट अफेयर चल रहा है. So that kind of feeling, and secondly, the time is limited. अब इसको मैं आपको समझाता हूँ एक दृष्टांत देके. Imagine that you are an again IPS officer and you are on a major district. आप SP हो, district SP हो, and there is some great dignitary visiting your district. And for last 1 week, आपकी पूरी force लगी हुई है on बंदोबस्त duty. And everybody is tired. After the event happens very successfully without any problem, you are also satisfied, but everybody is tired. आपने लोगों की छुट्टी कैंसिल करी थी, कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स थे, everybody was overworked. The moment visit is over, you are satisfied. आपने लोगों की छुट्टी अप्रूव कर दी, आधे लोग गांव चले गए, आप भी थके हुए हो, रात में 3 बजे, नाइट 3 o'clock you come and you sleep in your bedroom. And within 20 minutes you get a call from emergency number कि भाई in your district, in some village nearby, there is a riot. Now, once there is riot, the question of human life, you have to be responsible. You have to respond, understand the problem. How to respond? Do you have a data, complete knowledge of what is happening there? कितने लोग हैं? Who is responsible? What is the extent of the riot? What was the main cause? We have no data. We have no complete data. Do you have time to think कि भाई डेटा आ जाए फिर रिस्पॉन्ड करूंगा मैं, तब तक लोग मर जाएंगे भाई. You have to respond. Time is limited. Stakes are very high. And then there is maximum pressure all the time. एक तो because you are responsible, and secondly media, politician, everybody is on your head कि क्या कर रहे हो, क्या चल रहा है, and what are the resources that you possess. Half of the people are on vacation, वो चले गए छुट्टी में, बच्चे आधे थके हुए हैं. So your resources are limited, and still आप चूक नहीं कर, you cannot wrong, cannot do any error, because any error is loss of life. You have to respond. That is the kind of situation at a longer level that UPSC creates for you in this exam. The syllabus is endless, the time is limited, the resources are limited, stakes are very high, stress is there, delaying is not an option. So this exam is not exam only of geography or history or polity or economy. वो तो चलो एक बहाना है. The subjects are just carriers, the vehicles. The real test is of attitude and other things. Resilience. We have that officer like quality, OLQ, to wake up every day, to study, to revise, to structure the unstructured problem, and to create some kind of pathways for yourself. It's not that easy. तो आप इस एग्जाम को डोंट टेक एग्जाम ऑफ नॉलेज अलोन. नॉलेज तो है ही है, इट विल बी वेरीफाइड, इट विल बी checked, but apart from knowledge, it is exam of other things. It is going to test your physical limits, it is going to test your mental limits. Doing intensive study for 1 या 2 साल regularly is very unnatural. It's not human like. You have to go through that rigor. Now you have to take care of your health also. Extremely important. I am the example of that. I did not take care of my health. Every year, I have given 6 attempts, 6 mains, 2 interviews. Every year, before interview or before mains, I would be ill. कभी चिकनगुनिया हो गया, कभी टाइफाइड हो गया, कभी निमोनिया हो गया, कभी डेंगू हो गया. I have been admitted थ्रू आउट द मेंस ऑल्सो. मेंस से निकल के एम्बुलेंस में जाके हाथ में सलाइन लगा के मेंस के पेपर लिखे हुए तो है टाइफाइड हो गया. इट इज टोटली अननेसेसरी. इट इज अवॉइडेबल. यू हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ योर हेल्थ. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. कि अगर शरीर ठीक होगा तो आपका काम ठीक होगा. पेट में तो पीठ खराब हो गई, इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल. ठीक है. सो दिन का आधा घंटा 40 मिनट तो हेल्थ के लिए आपको देने ही देना है. यू हैव टू कीप दैट वेल. इट्स योर बॉडी इज योर इंस्ट्रूमेंट टू डू वर्क. इफ द इंस्ट्रूमेंट इज नॉट गुड, द वर्क विल नेवर बी गुड. So you have that. Now I want to add a few more things. एक तो there are some people who are scholar type and they may think that I have to go with perfection in my preparation. Now perfectionism is good at some level in life otherwise. In UPSC, it is not a virtue, it's a vice. Why? Because the same thing I told you. You cannot wait for perfect machine, perfectly trained your manpower and perfect response. Response karna hai niklo. Train your instincts. Don't wait for you have to train your instincts and not go for perfection. Perfectionism is useful for scholarly people, academic people, not for you. My main point is that you have to move on. आज का चैप्टर समझ लिया. डोंट स्टार्ट गोइंग होम एंड स्टार्ट गूगलिंग इसके अंदर क्या है और ज्ञान ले लूं और अच्छा आंसर लिखूं. भाई इट्स अ एग्जाम ऑफ एवरेजेस. द रैंक नंबर 1 गेट्स 50 to 52%. 50 to 52%. It is not a perfect answer. It means you are average in everything else. Everything else you are अगर आपको एग्जाम में इंश्योर क्या करना है? What you have to ensure that you are not bad in anything. You don't need to ensure you are good at anything. समझो. दिस इज अ गेम ऑफ एवरेजेस. आपको ज्योग्राफी, हिस्ट्री, पॉलिटी, इकोनॉमी, आईआर सब में आपको एवरेज नंबर लाने हैं. नो, इट इज नॉट पॉसिबल. कुछ ना कुछ कम हो जाएगा. सो यू नीड टू डेवलप योर स्किल इन सम लेवल टू कॉम्पेंसेट इन सम सब्जेक्ट. बट अल्टीमेटली इट्स अ गेम ऑफ एवरेज. 50% निकालने हैं ऑल इंडिया रैंक 1. समझो इसको. So don't try to be expert in anything. Don't spend time in developing a lot of in-depth knowledge. Don't try to focus on perfectionism. Because once you become perfectionist, you tend to waste a lot of time. कि अभी मेरा satisfaction नहीं हुआ, let me know more. Let me read इसकी और एक किताब. नहीं चाहिए और एक किताब. Move on. And secondly, understand that we'll go through multiple rounds. First round during our lectures, second round weekly and monthly tests, third round tri-monthly tests, fourth round we have the prelims revision batches, fifth round we have revision through questions, sixth round mains batches. We do at least 4, 5, 6 revisions throughout next 1.5 year in the class. Don't worry. So अगर आपका कुछ point weak है in the first round, it's okay. Deadlines are important. Move on. We'll do in the second round, we'll do the third round, in the fourth round we'll do that. But don't पहले ही राउंड ऐसा हो कि मैं सचिन तेंदुलकर बन जाऊं. नहीं बनोगे सचिन in the first practice. ठीक है. So don't focus on perfectionism a lot. Apart from that, I have a couple of more things to say. All of you will be allocated mentors. Try to utilize that to the maximum. You keep appraised your mentor कि भाई मैंने यहाँ तक पहुंचा हूँ, ये नहीं किया है, ये प्रॉब्लम है. Discuss with the mentor everything as far as possible. You will also have the phone numbers of every faculty. You can drop them WhatsApp message. Apart from that, we also have Telegram group. You can utilize that batch ka Telegram group. You can ask any question there. Faculties also will be there in the Telegram group. Apart from that, we have doubt solving sessions every week. So we have various ways of approaching faculty and mentor. Utilize it to the maximum. In most places, faculties का personal access नहीं होता है. We have that here. Use that. And then we also have one more thing which is extremely important. You might not realize right now, maybe after 6 months, 8 months, that becomes more important. We have a trained professional psychologist in house. If you are facing any problem, stress बढ़ गया, anxiety issues, maybe sleeplessness, focus, concentration improve करना है, memory techniques, whatever, we will conduct seminars and workshops, and you can also book one-to-one sessions for such kind of the performance enhancement techniques you require at your personal level as well. It is totally free for everybody, but you have to initiate the process. If you feel the need, you can book the session. Okay. Okay. Chalo. This is good enough outline of what we do in the GS Foundation. It is going to be a very comprehensive journey, और अगले 1.5-2 साल तक आप और हम साथ ही हैं. Now we'll discuss the uh, history thing. We have some comments here. When to start optional for 2027 attempt? The optional takes around 6 to 8 months. 5 hours every single day, 6 to 8 months. So if you 6 months to लगते ही है. If you start in the month of June, so from June or May or June, from June onwards till December, January, you have to dedicate 5 hours every day to finish optional completely. That is the appropriate time. So if you 10 घंटे पढ़ रहे हो, 5 घंटा GS, 5 घंटा optional for 6 months, that will be your schedule. Okay, June to December. That's a perfect time. Himanshu is asking AMAC. We'll discuss history now. Don't worry. History की अब सारी बातें आप करेंगे. Wait for 2 minutes. Any doubt so far? No doubt. चलो. Now, have you seen the notification? Last पिछले महीने ही आया है फरवरी में. Have you been through your syllabus of history? Let us do that. Before we go on, we have to look at the syllabus. ये क्या आवाज कर रहा है ऊपर? The subjects, exam का structure, marking scheme. Yes. Let us look at the syllabus now. So my name is Nikhil. I'll be teaching you ancient medieval art and culture, and we have Vishal sir who will teach you modern India, post-independence world history. So let me discuss all the history wala preparation now for next few minutes. पहली बात तो syllabus. Look at the UPSC's official syllabus of prelims. What they tell us about history syllabus in prelims. The line says history of India and Indian national movement. What does it say? It says nothing. एक तो when you talk of history of India, it already means Indian national movement as well. But they want to emphasize it कि modern India भी है. But चलो बाकी history भी है. कौन सी history है भाई? Is it prehistory? Is it Harappa? Is it Vedic? Is it Mughal? Is it North India, South India, ancient, medieval? कौन सी history? सब कुछ. So the prelims syllabus is not very perceptive. It doesn't guide us well, at least insofar as history is concerned. So we have to rely a lot on the PYQs to understand what UPSC means by the syllabus of history. What about mains? In the mains, we have in GS1 history wala syllabus. In the main examination, we have GS1. We have paper 2. यहाँ पे देखो syllabus क्या दिया हुआ है. The topic is this: first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. There are 5 bullet points of history syllabus in the main. The first bullet point says Indian culture will cover the salient aspects of art forms, literature, and architecture from ancient to modern times. From ancient to modern times. Matlab, the first point is art and culture. Now, art and culture as a theme has now become very important over last 10 years. 10 साल पहले इसकी बात लोग नहीं कर, it was just an appendage to history. Now it has become mainstream for us. And UPSC has mentioned it explicitly as the very first point of very first GS paper, art and culture. एक बात और इसमें है, UPSC has also made it clear that it starts from ancient time and comes till modern times. Now, if you look at the PYQs, it is very clear to us that UPSC asks culture from ancient time and from medieval time. From modern time, it generally does not go into the syllabus. मॉडर्न एरा का कल्चर मतलब इन द ब्रिटिश एरा, इन द कॉलोनियल एरा, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर था वगैरह वगैरह, आज तक सवाल एक भी नहीं आया है। सिंस 2012 2013 व्हेन वी हैड द न्यू सिलेबस, अब 13-14 साल हो गए, नॉट अ सिंगल क्वेश्चन आस्क्ड। ठीक है, सो दैट इज देयर। So we'll cover mostly ancient and medieval, not modern का culture. Then we come to next part, modern Indian history. अच्छा, modern Indian history. What about ancient medieval India? It is not in the syllabus. Ancient and medieval India are in the syllabus of prelims. They are not in the syllabus of mains. We have ancient medieval. When I say ancient medieval, I mean political history, social history, economic history. ये सब जो है, we'll study that thoroughly for prelims. It is not there in the mains. Mains में बस art and culture. You have to understand that nobody is going to ask you the foundation of Mughal Empire. Nobody is going to ask you the Gupta political history. Those are for prelims, not in the mains. Mains में art and culture alone. ठीक है? Then modern Indian history from about the middle of 18th century until the present, significant events, personalities and issues. When you say from about the mid of the 18th century, matlab around 1757, Plassey, that is our logical guess. From Plassey till today, we have to look at entire history. Matlab before 1947 also and after 1947 also. We have what we traditionally call as modern India till 1947 and we have post independence history as well. We have to do both of them. हाँ, ये बात अलग है that post independence के सवाल बहुत कम आते हैं, एक हाथ सवाल आ जाता है, but we do it in the class thoroughly. Again the same problem, look at the third bit, the freedom struggle, its various stages and important contributions from different parts of the country. This is already is part of the first point. This point is subset of the earlier point. They wanted to mention it once again separately, it's totally fine. Then we have again post independence consolidation and reorganization within the country. तो ये दोनों point जो है, this point and this point are actually the subset of this point, but UPSC has mentioned it separately nonetheless. Now you come to last point. The last point here is history of the world will cover events from the 18th century such as industrial revolution, world wars, withdrawal of national boundaries, colonization, decolonization, political philosophies like communism, capitalism, socialism, etc., their forms and effect on the society. So we have world history as well, and for most of you, I am supposing it will be a new topic. It's a it's not a world history randomly, it is a modern world history again from the 18th century onwards. 18th century matlab 1750s, 1770s, 1780s, matlab from the beginning of industrial revolution and from the beginning of what we call as a European enlightenment. From enlightenment and industrial revolution onwards till today, we have to cover the major happenings of world history. Now this is a very important part overall because it creates a backdrop for modern Indian history also. When you say modern Indian history, the modernity comes from the world. Then it also helps us understand the polity, economy, IR, everything. तो इसके ऊपर सवाल भी मेंस में एक आता है या दो आते हैं, कभी कभी एक भी नहीं आता. Let me tell you how it happens in question weightage time. In prelims for history, generally if you take average of last 5 to 10 years, we get about 18 questions. 18 questions. Of the 18 questions, what we have are about 14 questions from AMAC, about 4 questions from modern. That is the trend for last 5 years. Modern का weightage, modern is very important. It will take almost 30-35 lectures to cover it completely, but pre के सवाल होंगे 4 या 5, कभी कभी 3 आ जाएंगे. That is for prelims. But AMAC minimum 12 to 14 questions. And within that also, if you see, you have ancient about 2 questions, medieval about 2 questions, and culture about 10 questions. So even in prelims paper over last 5 years, culture has emerged to be very important. And not only in UPSC prelims, overall in India today, we have the agenda of the government of decolonization. Culture plays a very important role. You see the National Education Policy 2020, and as per which the new NCERTs are being written, the culture is very important. They call it IKS, Indian Knowledge System. IKS. It has acquired a very salient major importance now. So culture बहुत deep से पढ़ना होगा. Then we go to modern India. 4 सवाल होते हैं. 4 में से 2 सवाल are relatively easy. And अजय सर, एक बार आएंगे यहाँ पे. 2 सवाल are generally difficult. This is the weightage of prelims. In the main examination, what we have initially in 2013, 14, 15, 16, the things were unstable. They kept on changing the proportion. But now we have 6 questions out of 20, 6 to 7 questions out of 20 in main GS1. In GS1. Matlab 1/3 of GS1 is history. Out of the 6 to 7 questions, again, the pattern is that 3 questions come from culture, 3 from modern, and 1 or 2 may come from world. That is the weightage. One question is of 10 to 15 marks, minimum 30 marks, maximum 45 marks for culture. So what I will be teaching you over next 1 month will take care of these 14 questions and these 3. That is our objective of next 1 month. Is it clear? Any doubt online? Now let me go ahead and discuss history for some time. Because when I came today morning, I saw very serious faces. History padhni padegi. है ना? One of the most beloved subject of India today. One of the most hated subject of school children. इतिहास में क्या है? So I am trying to do it in a little experimental way today. पहली बात तो you understand that history is different in different spheres. As an academic, history is studied differently. Once you consume social media, I think most of you do. आप वहाँ पे हिस्ट्री के बहुत डिबेट्स चलते रहते हैं. You have already formed some opinions about हड़प्पा में क्या रोल था, आर्यों का, मंदिर किसने तोड़े, etc. So we have those opinions already. That's a social media history. Some of it may be factually true also, some of it may not be, but the social media sphere अलग होता है. Academia is different, social media is different. And then there is third sphere, that is UPSC. इसका अपना ही चलता है. So we have to understand for UPSC, how do you do go for history? But before we start, now we will start our interactive session. I want you to tell me, what do you mean by history? What does it mean? When you study history, what do you study? Can you define history? Okay, history is study of past events. Let me write it here. This is appropriate definition, but it has a lot of masala into it if you deconstruct. पहली बात, when you say past and when you say history, this definition clearly says that these two things are not the same. History is not about past. History is not the past. History is study of the past. दोनों में फर्क है. क्या हुआ, ये हो गया. It's done and dusted. It's gone. Now when I study it, I may recover some of it. I may understand some of it. I may lose some of it. I may distort some of it. The past is the past. History is study of the past. That is one. Secondly, whose past? आपने सुबह नाश्ता किया होगा या जाने के बाद कल किया होगा सुबह नाश्ता. Is it a history? आपने कल कुछ कपड़े पहने होंगे. Is it a history? Well, at a personal level, it may be a history, but it's a past. But not every event in the past becomes worthy of study. You have to understand which past we study. Let us say you come from Arunachal Pradesh. No, I used to go to Arunachal in the past. Arunachal has lots of tribes in different valleys. We have Nishi tribe in the valley of Itanagar, Papumpare. You have Adi tribe somewhere else. Beyond that, you have Galo tribe, Mishmi tribe, etc. Every tribe has their own region, own valley. Now, we don't study their past in our history. Why? Because people of Arunachal are less important? No, they are as important as we are, equal citizens of India. Then, what we are looking for is some kind of events that are going to change the narrative, change the structure. Just because the kings come and kings go, tribes come, tribes go, they keep fighting, it keeps recurring, it does not make it important by default. So, what I will do now for some time is to list some typical quotes. 5-6-7 quotes देखेंगे हम in popular saying, and through the quotes I'll try to explain what is history for us for this exam and how do we approach history for the exam. The first quote is water under the bridge, or it's an ancient past, or there is also saying let bygones be bygones. जो हो चुका वो हो चुका. What does it mean? This is all past. This is all irrelevant. क्या मैं क्या करूं? गड़े मुर्दे क्यों उखाड़ने हैं? गड़े मुर्दे क्यों उखाड़ने हैं? Is history relevant? Why to study history? That is my question. If it is past, भूल जाओ. There was this very famous Bollywood song, black and white era में, सिकंदर ने पोरस से की थी लड़ाई, जो की थी लड़ाई, तो मैं क्या करूं, जो कौरव ने पांडव से की हाथापाई, जो की हाथापाई, तो मैं क्या करूं. मतलब हाउ, गड़े मुर्दे क्यों उखाड़ने हैं? Why is history relevant? Why is history important? That is my question. You want to understand the present. Correct. Correct. So past has some impact. So our interest is not the past. Our interest is present. And to understand present, we need to know the past better. So it has some kind of impact on present life. It has some kind of wisdom for predicting what might happen in future. You also become better aware of your own identity, who you are and where you have come. So it has that utility. So from utility point of view, from getting wisdom point of view, from understanding self identity point of view, from not repeating mistakes point of view, history has some utility. And beyond utility, it is also very interesting subject. So it's not let bygones be bygones. It is still a relevant subject. That is the first thing. The second thing, agar wo baat hai, if you're looking for some wisdom to understand what might happen in the future, then there comes the second quote. History repeats itself. Have you heard this quote before? It's by whom? It's by Karl Marx. History repeats itself first as a tragedy and then as a farce. ये मार्क्स का एग्जैक्ट कोट है. First as a tragedy and then as a farce. Does history repeat itself? Any example of that? History repeating itself. Wars, okay, but are you able, can you pinpoint certain specific reason कि इसी कारण के वजह से बार बार युद्ध होते हैं? Then it is repeating history. Okay, but let me tell you one thing, nations are a very new thing. Till 200-300 years ago, nations did not exist. It's a modern way of organizing our life around nation state. ये नई बात है. If you go deep into the past, आज से 400, 500, 600 साल पहले there were no nation states. There were people, there were communities. There were empires and kingdoms, no nations. एक छोटा सा टेक्निकल डिफरेंस बता दिया. But anyway, so some mistakes, some disasters might reoccur. In case of India, can you give specific examples? अजय सर एक बार आएंगे प्लीज. कहाँ से आवाज आ रही है? मुझे ऊपर से लग रही है. ये आवाज बंद कर देंगे. कहाँ से आवाज आ रही है वो? यहाँ पे खड़े हो जाए, आपको आ जाएगी. क्या आवाज है? इस एसी का पीछे वाला पार्ट बंद कर दो यार, है ना. वो कान में इतनी ड्रोनिंग साउंड ऑल द टाइम. हम्म. 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 अच्छा, बार बार वर्ल्ड कप जीते रहेंगे. ठीक. I'll tell you the context in which happened, in which Karl Marx uttered this sentence. You know, in Europe, there's a country called France. In France, there was a French Revolution in 1789, and then it became very bloody by 1791, 1792, and then it became complete chaos. And from that chaos emerged Napoleon as the ruler of France. The revolution had started to remove the monarch and let the power be with the people with very progressive ideas. क्योंकि शुरुआत थी, अंत में क्या हुआ? नेपोलियन आया एंड मोनार्की केम बैक. वो खुद राजा बन गया. हिज ब्रदर्स बिकेम किंग्स इन नेबरिंग एरिया. तो फिर इट वाज अ ट्रेजेडी. द हिस्ट्री रिपीट्स इटसेल्फ, फर्स्ट एज अ ट्रेजेडी in 1790s, then after 50 years in 1748 नेपोलियन का वंशज आया, नेपोलियन थर्ड, एंड वहां भी क्रांति हुई थी इन फ्रांस. एंड वो भी क्रांति ऐसी खत्म हो गई एंड नेपोलियन थ्री केम ऑन थ्रोन एंड ही copied everything as what was done by Napoleon first. And it was not with substance, it was just pompousness. It was just repetition of that. So it became kind of a farcical repetition. History repeats itself. Napoleon I removed the French Revolution and came on throne. Napoleon III also removed and the French Revolution came on throne again. It was farcical in nature. So it is in this context Karl Marx had uttered this. History repeats itself, first as a tragedy, then as a farce. In case of India, the best example is Khyber Pass. जितने invasions हुए हैं खैबर पास से हुए historically. We have the coming of Indo-Greeks. We have the coming of uh, the Shakas, the Scythians. We have the coming of Kushanas. Then we have the coming of Huns, Hunas. Then we have comings of the Arabs. Then we have comings of the Turks. Then we have comings of the Mughals. So geography of India dictated that Himalaya is our guardian. There is one narrow pass of Khyber in the northwest, and वहां से सदियों से invasion हुए जा रहे. It's repeating, but it does not always repeat exactly. Because when British and French came, they came via ocean. India got colonized in the last time. It was the Europeans who colonized us. It was via oceanic way. They came via maritime route, not via that Khyber Pass route. So history may repeat itself all the time, but not always. History rhymes. Colonization तो हो गया. अब दोबारा वही हम कगार पे खड़े हैं आज के दिन में. I hope you are aware with AI. It might happen that entire world may get again colonized. Who knows? History might repeat, but this time might not be through Khyber Pass. So things happen like this all the time. They rhyme. Not exactly they repeat, they rhyme. ठीक है. अगर ये बात है तो there is this famous saying by Churchill also, the longer we look back, the farther we can look ahead. It is by Churchill. Longer we look back, the farther we can look ahead or look forward. So he is also referring to the predictive utility of history as a subject. जितना आप अच्छे से पढ़ोगे उतना आपको advantage मिलेगा. But now I will give you exactly opposite opinion. The same guy, Napoleon, has said something else about history. He has said that history doesn't exist. ये आपकी मनगढ़ंत कहानी है. What he says is, what is history? But a fable agreed upon. This is by Napoleon. What is history but a fable agreed upon? ये सब ये सब क्या है? ये परिकथा है. If you believe in it, I believe in it. It is history. It is not real thing. History, is history completely parikatha? Is it completely imaginary? आप बताइए. हाँ हाँ, नहीं आपसे आगे सेकंड लास्ट. यस. Is history completely imaginary all the time? Why do you say so? Why do you say so? What is the difference in history and mythology? रुको आप. Let me ask somebody else. Yes. History and mythology. इतिहास और मिथक में क्या फर्क है? There has to be some difference. Mythology, no evidence. Okay, or you may create evidence also. For example, let us think of Mahabharat. कुरुक्षेत्र तो है, right? You can think of anything in the past. Mythology is not totally mythical, it has some grounding, but it is not completely. It is based on belief. You are that way, right? You don't have to go for primary, secondary evidence, it is based on belief. History is a rigorous discipline where it is not completely imaginary. You have to go for sources. You have to prove how do you know what you know, and you have to give evidence of that. But even when you give evidences, your evidence and my evidence may not always be the same. And even if the evidence is the same, the story you construct around evidence and I construct around evidence may be little different. For example, this is the star 1, star 2, star 3, star 4 in the sky. When you see at this star, what you see is perhaps a trapezoid. When I see in the sky, I don't see trapezoid, I see a cross. कौन सही है? दोनों सही है, because these lines are imaginary. Stars are the facts are the facts. That is history ka main part. But apart from facts, history is not only about establishing facts, it's about creating a version, creating some kind of connection, interlinkages, analysis, causation. And that is where historical art comes in. It's a skill of historian to imagine these lines and why yellow line is more suitable than green line. Line तो कोई भी सच नहीं है, but कौन सी line अधिक सही है? Facts for the given facts. That is the job of historian. So history has your version and history has my version also, even for the given set of facts. अब यहाँ पे बात क्या होती है? So history has versions. Maybe who writes history and whose history becomes important version. जिनके पास सत्ता होती है, ताकत होती है. Their version will get established as the version, the authoritative version, the real version. So there comes the other quote: history is written by the victors. Because history has various versions. Now, why I am telling this? Look at this thing. When British came to India, after Plassey, when they conquered Bengal, after Bengal, we have Warren Hastings in 1780s, 1770s. He started studying history of India. He started creating people, offices, institutions, groups, etc., to study history of India. In 1780s, we have the formation of the Asiatic Society of Bengal. In 1800s, with the formation of Fort William College in Calcutta. इसके थ्रू क्या हो रहा है? They're creating a version of their history of India. And by 1818, we have James Mill writing his masterful History of India. That version of history of James Mill becomes authoritative version for next 1 century. वो बहुत जेम्स मिल इतना नालायक आदमी था. I am not joking. He never came to India. He wrote History of India, and that was forced upon all officers who came. जो ICS बनेगा वो वही हिस्ट्री पढ़ेगा, उसी चश्मे से इंडिया को देखेगा. And India was not painted in a very charitable way in that book. India was shown as an inferior civilization, stunted civilization, changeless society, and Hivarian rule became possible through that. So what we have is a colonial history writing, colonial version. But gradually Indians understood the game. They wanted to outsmart British in that game, so they came with their own history version. कि अच्छा आप कहते हो हम पास्ट में बिखरे हुए थे, we'll find examples जब पास्ट में इकट्ठा थे. You focus on India's fragmentation in certain era, we focus on great achievements in certain other era. So if British are looking into India's past to find out problems and faults and disunity, the nationalists would look at India's past to find out unity and greatness and golden achievement. We have now two words. दोनों would agree with set of facts. Facts के बारे में they don't dispute. What they dispute is the version, the perspective, is where to focus. We have colonial school of writing and we have a nationalist school of writing. Both of them are debating with each other. That went on till 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. But both of them had one thing in common. Both of them generally focused on history of kings and queens, history of states and empires, history of kingdoms, history of warfare, history of great people. But those are very few people. What about masses? What about peasants? They are focusing on political history. What about economy? What about society? What about culture? तो ये चीजें आती है थर्ड फेज में. Neither colonial school nor the nationalist school. In 1950s we have Marxists, the communists, and the communists start writing history of India and they focus on peasants and tribal and economic change, etc., etc. We have the third phase that becomes very prominent in 50s and 60s. That is the time when NCRT is established in 60s, 70s. That is the time when Jain was established in late 60s. So that kind of phase went on for next two generations till the turn of the century. And then it also started to get demolished. Now what we have is neither colonial nor nationalist nor Marxist. We are, we are today not with one single idea or lens or framework. We have different types of history writings. We have a Dalit history, we have a feminist history, we have environmental history, we have global history, we have intellectual history, etc. तो अब नए नए किस्म से इतिहास लिखा जाता है. So the things are evolving. My point is all of these may agree on certain facts as common set of facts, but they are different versions, and some versions get more privilege because of the ideology or political power. It's a very basic thing. ठीक है? Then to understand ये yellow and green तो ठीक है, what matters more are the evidences. So we have another thing, no documents, no history, by Van Paul Ranke. Ranke was a German historian, and he is known as the person who established the discipline of history in modern way. उसका सिंपल कहना क्या था कि भाई एविडेंस दिखाओ, मनगढ़ंत बातें नहीं. हाउ डू यू नो व्हाट यू नो? द प्राइमरी सोर्सेस मैटर. सोर्सेस मैटर. नाउ टेल मी वन थिंग. I'll give you a scenario. Let us say you and your friend, both of you, go on a fort in Rajasthan. And while roaming around the fort, it's a deserted fort. कोई जाता नहीं है वहाँ पे, खाली पड़ा हुआ है. You go there and suddenly you find an old coin. And you pick up the coin. Coin belongs to 1750 AD. What does it mean? So there is a logical guess that some people may say, so this fort may be as old as 1750. तभी तो coin वहाँ पे होगा. It's not true. Fort may be much older than that, or fort may be later than that also, because you don't know when the coin came there. Somebody bearing the coin of 1750 came there before you. That's all you know. He or she might have come there just last year in 2025 also and put the coin there. How do you know? You have to identify ये coin यहाँ पे आया कब. So to excavate history is not easy. I'll give another example. Where was Bhagavad Gita composed? If you go by the text in Bhagavad Gita, the first adhyay, the first line, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. So you would say Krishna is standing on Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, the battlefield, Mahabharat ke zamane. How do you know that? Krishna bol raha hai. How do you trust him? As a person who believes in religion, you go by the word. But the historian, what you say, Acha, show me the copy of Gita. Okay, this copy is printed by some publication in 1980. So I can say in 1980, people believed that Krishna was standing on Mahabharat. Okay, is not the only copy. I may have older copies. Let me go to the manuscripts of Gita. The oldest manuscript comes, let us say, in 1120 or 1140 AD. So I can even then say that in 1120, 1140, people believed that, or some people believed, Krishna was standing in the battlefield of Mahabharat. This is how historians think. The evidence is tarah kaam karta. Are you able to understand my point of view? So this is the Rankian thought. You have to understand that different sources matter a lot. Sources matter a lot. In our syllabus, we have two types of sources, that is literary and archaeological. Literary and archaeological. In literature, we have two types of sources. One is religious, there is secular. And in archaeology, we have lots of other variety of sources. You may have artifacts. Artifacts could be the bones, the stone tools, copper tools, iron tools, pottery. You can have bricks and bangles, lots of. Apart from that, you may have inscriptions. In India, we have exceptionally wide amount of inscriptions. And we'll read some of them in the class. हम कुछ पढ़ेंगे class में. I will show the photo inscription, we'll read them. Then you may also have coinage, coins. For example, you have, I have some coins with me. These two coins. One coin is a coin of Sher Shah Suri, original coin. भारत का पहला रुपया. This is a silver coin of Sher Shah Suri, original one. यहाँ पे Sri Sher Shah is written in Devanagari and rest of it is in Nastalic script. So coin as a history, what can we know from this coin? The material, the script, other things. I can have another coin here. It's called Panchmark coin of 6th century BC, Magad Mahajanpad of Gautam Buddha's era. This coin is as old as Gautam Buddha. The original silver coin. Punchmark coin, PMCs. So these coins tell us a huge amount of history. We'll discuss those coins' history also and how they are useful to construct history. And then we also have other things. For example, we have sculptures, painting, architecture. That we shall study separately in culture. No documents, no history. Let me tell you that, have you heard of these terms called प्री हिस्ट्री एंड प्रोटो हिस्ट्री, सुना है आपने नाम का नाम? Prehistory, proto-history, and history. Have you heard these terms before? What is the difference? What is history? History is something for which you have a literary source available. Literature होना चाहिए. Only that era is historical era. But humans invented writing when? Very recently. What is the oldest writing in history of India? Ashokan edicts. Vedas are older than Ashoka, yes, but they were not written down. They were oral culture. हजारों साल तो उनको लिखा ही नहीं गया. So the written evidence, oldest one is possibly Ashokan edicts. Now we have some evidences from South India which are pre-Ashokan, maybe by a century or two, but that is all we have got. We can't go beyond that far in the past. India's history that way begins in the 5th or 6th century BCE. के पहले is either prehistory or proto-history. What is prehistory? Prehistory is the region of mankind's existence on earth when there is no written material. There is no literature available. Then how do we know about them? Through archaeology. We know about them through the iron tool. We may know about them through the bronze or copper tool, through the bricks, or through some other bones or other. So for अब ऐसे अगर हम पता है कि 65,000 ईयर से वी आर होमोसेपियंस इन इंडियन सबकॉन्टिनेंट. इंडियन सबकॉन्टिनेंट जो मॉडर्न होमोसेपियन कब आया? 60,000 ईयर्स बीसी में आया. आपका 65,000 ईयर्स बीसी और तभी आया था. तो ऑफ दो 65,000 ईयर्स वी हैव राइटिंग मैक्सिमम फॉर मे बी 4,000 ईयर्स, 3,000 ईयर्स. राइटिंग है ही नहीं. तो 95% ऑफ आर एग्जिस्टेंस in this Indian subcontinent, we are in prehistory. Only for recent 2-4-5% we are in historical age. So prehistory is much, much longer. It is studied by archaeologists and anthropologists. We'll study it also in 2 to 3 lectures, not more than that. UPSC's focus is on history and less on prehistory. But सवाल कुछ कुछ आते हैं, हम वो पढ़ेंगे. Then there is also one thing called as proto-history. What is proto-history? If you believe that way, it is technically okay, but this idea has faults. I'll discuss why. But what is it? It is only transition. What is the transition? कि मेरे को writing नहीं आता था, writing आता है. What is the transition there? That is one version. You are right. Harappa, for example. Harappan civilization is there. They knew how to write. We have the script available. It is not decoded. So it becomes a proto-history. This is one version. There are other versions also. Think of Roman Empire. Your great Roman Empire. You are constantly rammed by the Germanic tribes from the north. Romans have civilization, they have great cities, they have great state, they know how to write. We have huge amount of writing by Romans, Cicero, for example. But from north, the German tribes which come and attack and destroy the Roman phalanxes, those people don't know how to write. They don't have writing skill, neither they need any writing skill. How do you know about them? Yes, Romans wrote about them. So Romans are contemporary to them. They are writing about their neighbors and they mention कि भाई ये tribe ऐसे है, कपड़े ऐसे, खाना ऐसा, लोग ऐसे, wars ऐसा वगैरह वगैरह. So German tribes are not writing about themselves. We know them through Romans. So Romans are in historic era, but at the very same time, their neighbors are in proto-historic era for us. You get the difference? So this era is not transition that way, because this history and proto-history can coexist for different people. Even today, you may have certain tribes in India. They don't write. They don't need to write. They're in prehistory. So you don't. It's not a linear process. So I'll tell you one more interesting thing. If you look at India's timeline, what we have is prehistory. Then you come to Harappa. After Harappa is gone, we have the Vedic era, and then we have the Mahajanapada era. In the prehistory, we have Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, etc. In Harappa were India's first great cities. In the northwestern part of India, the great cities. Once Harappa declines, we have Vedic era. The Vedas were Atharva Ved, Samaved, Rigved were composed in that era. But Vedas were not written down, they are oral literature. They are written much, much later. Much later. Therefore, we also call Vedic era as protohistory. We have the contemporary literature, but written down much later. Therefore, Vedic era is also in protohistory. So we have two different eras in protohistory in India. Harappa is protohistory because the script is not deciphered. And Vedic era is protohistory because it was not written down back then. Vedic people don't know how to write. They don't have script. They can compose great poetry, but they don't have script. It is much afterwards that they were written down. So both of these are protohistoric era, but for different reasons. Now imagine for a moment, if one day Harappan script is deciphered. Now we know we can read Harappa. So Harappan society will graduate from proto-history into, तब will it be transition? फिर क्या होगा आपका? Pre-history to history, back to proto-history, then again to history. ये बन जाएगा उसका. Therefore, it's not necessarily it's not a gradual linear movement forward. It can go back and forth all. Is it clear? But the basic idea of prehistory and history is literature, writing skill. We'll discuss these things in much, much more detail in coming time. But I want to discuss one more thing about sources. And that thing was the primary source and secondary source. We should be able to differentiate this also. Sources case study is very important. We have seen the types of sources, literary and archaeological. We have also discussed why the sources are important and how they help us in prehistory, protohistory, etc. We have seen the examples of coin on fort or Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. Now discuss last thing, primary versus secondary sources. What is the primary or secondary sources? Primary sources मतलब eyewitness. Eyewitness. This thing was there. Anybody from judicial background LLB किया किसी ने? Online anybody? Tarun, Rohan, Yash, Ayush, Ji, Yen, Abhi? कोई है from the background of legal context? Okay. तो आपने मूवीज में देखा होगा चश्मदीद गवाह, आई विटनेस, एंड अदरवाइज इट इज जस्ट हियर से कहीं सुनी बातें. फॉर एग्जाम्पल व्हाट आई एम टेलिंग यू राइट नाउ, यू आर चश्मदीद गवाह, यू आर आई विटनेस, एंड व्हेन यू टेल इट टू योर फ्रेंड कि यार निखिल सर ने बड़ा बेकार पढ़ाया या बड़ा अच्छा पढ़ाया, जैसे भी कहना चाहो, तो उसके लिए क्या है, वो कहीं सुनी बात, इट्स हियर से. तो whom to trust more, आई विटनेस और हियर से? whom to trust more? आई विटनेस. दैट इज अ प्राइमरी सोर्स. Now I'll give an example. Example है Mauryan Empire. In Mauryan Empire, there was a king called Chandragupta Maurya. In his darbar came a Greek person, ambassador called Megasthenes. So Megasthenes wrote a book called Indica. अब इंडिका में उसने भतीजे की लिखी हुई है. Some things that he has observed himself in Pataliputra, the capital of Mauryan Empire, and some things he has not seen himself, but he claims to be true. वो कहता है पाटलिपुत्र सिटी इज सो मेनी मीटर्स बाय सो मेनी मीटर्स वाइड, गॉट फोर्टिफिकेशन. भाई तू बैठा है वहां पे, देखा होगा. आई कैन टेक दैट पार्ट एज मोर फैक्चुअली एक्यूरेट. बट ही ऑल्सो सेज दैट इन हिमालयाज वहां पे चीटियां होती है, वो सोना निकालती है जमीन के अंदर. वहां के सिंह होते हैं, दे आर टाइगर्स एंड लायंस, दे हैव विंग्स एंड दे फ्लाई इन द स्काई. अब ये तो नॉनसेंस है. बट आई कैन से दैट परहैप्स मेगास्थेनिस हैड नॉट बीन टू हिमालयाज, जस्ट हर्ड इट फ्रॉम पीपल. He says वहाँ के लोगों के पैर उल्टे होते हैं, वो उल्टा भागते हैं. Again, it doesn't make any sense. But that is, so in the very same book of Indica, Some portion is more trustworthy because Megasthenes has seen it personally, and some portion is less trustworthy because he has heard about it. So Indica itself is neither fully primary source nor fully secondary source. It has some portion primary, some portion secondary. If it is primary, we trust this as more authentic. Secondary, maybe not, may or may not be authentic. We have to have more evidences. Are you able to understand? If take Raja Tarangini. So Raja Tarangini is a famous book of the history of Kashmir. The history of Kashmir, Raja Tarangini, by an author called Kalhan. हम उसके बारे में पढ़ेंगे. Don't worry. Kalhan. So he writes history of Kashmir for thousands of years. It starts in the era of Mahabharat. It comes to the 11th century when he is there. तो इसके पुराने चैप्टर्स जो है, जो महाभारत की बात करते हैं, 5th and 6th century AD की बात करते हैं, they are far away from his time. So he is not accurate. He has heard about them, he has read about them, he has not seen it. So we trust it less. But when he comes closer to his own era, उस जमाने का राजा, उसके पिताजी, he has been more closer to these people. So we trust that portion more. So those chapters are primary, other chapters are secondary. So to understand difference in primary, because not every source is equally authentic. If you get two sources, source A and source B, and they clash, they give different facts, opposite facts, which source you trust more? The primary one, not the second. Primary source is always given more importance over and above second. The famous example is of Pushyamitra Shunga. You have heard of name Pushyamitra Shunga? Pushyamitra Shunga was a king in North India after Mauryans collapsed. He is the one who assassinated the last Mauryan king and got the throne. He was a Brahmin and Mauryan king was Buddhist. तो ऐसे कुछ लोगों ने कहा है that it's a Brahmanical backlash on the pro-Buddhist policies of Mauryan Empire. Some people claim that. खास करके the Buddhist religion claims that. But how do we know that? We know it through literature of Buddhists. Now they are the interest party, they're the affected party. They would want to paint the picture in their own benefit. We do not trust them by default. Why? Because on the ground, when Shungas were ruling in their region, in their territory, we have great Buddhist architecture flourishing. So there is architecture which tells me thing A, literature tells me thing B. Now when there is a clash, both of them may be contemporary, both of them may be primary, but even within that, one is literature, one is architecture. What do I trust more? Architecture, it's a hard fact. It's a hard fact. Literature can be changed, can be manipulated. There is also, when you have different types of sources, what is the craft of historian? इसने बोल दिया तो सही थोड़ी है. We have to dig deeper, arrange various sources, various data sources, and then compare, contrast, and then decide which is more credible, which is more authentic. And some other source which is not as credible, you have to give reason for that, why it is not credible. The sources case study is primary. Now, why I am telling all this is because in UPSC is often fond of asking questions on source in both prelims and mains, especially in prelims. They pick up some random book of name of book. अब अगर आप मुझे ये किताब क्यों पूछी, अगर मैं किताबों की पूरी ग्लॉसरी बनाऊं तो लाखों किताबें हो जाए. We don't need लाखों किताबें. We don't need lakhs of books. What we need are only those books which are important as sources for history construction, or history reconstruction. But mind well, not everything can be reconstructed. Some things are gone forever. Forever. So my teacher often says that historian's job is a job of fire inspector. That you are a fire inspector मतलब एक घर था, बड़ा सा घर था, जल गया, is burnt down, completely राख राख हो गया, and you go as fire inspector. What can you reconstruct in your mind about घर कैसा था? In absence of any photo. Here was a sofa, उसका रंग शायद ये होगा, यहाँ पे लोग खेलते होंगे, यहाँ पे कुछ तस्वीर, यहाँ पे मतलब whatever you can reconstruct, almost everything is राख now. And to what extent it will be accurate of the reality? That is the job of history, to understand history, study of the past. It is not the actual घर नहीं है. A fire inspector's report is the study of that house. History is the study of the past. वो जल चुकी है, जहा चुकी है, खत्म हो चुकी है. So you're always approximate, you're always tentative. अब इसमें जो सबसे बड़ी बात आती है वो ये होती है that there are two things about history we should know properly. Number 5. Chronology is the soul of history. Chronology is the soul of history. So don't worry, आज की बातें थोड़ी ऐसी थोड़ी open ended है. From tomorrow we'll have complete detailed printed handouts every. And आज बस सुन लो थोड़ा सा primary. I want to orient your mind towards thinking before we start actual history in era wise fashion. So chronology is the soul of history. You know, when British wrote history, that James Mill guy, the nonsense person, he wrote history. I call spade the spade. James Mill had been anti-India, उसको गाली ही पड़ेगी. भले कितना बड़ा intellectual, doesn't matter. ठीक है? तो दोनों बाप बेटे थे. Anyway, so when he wrote history of India, he divided history in 3 parts. You know that? What is that? The Hindu period, the Muslim period, and the British period. It is called communal thinking. It is totally fault. First of all, when you say Hindu, Muslim, and British, what you're trying to do is to go for periodization, which is very important, but it has to have some logic behind it. When you say Hindu period, do you mean that all the people were Hindu back then? They were not. There are a lot of philosophers. Some were Jains, some were Buddhists. There were Buddhist kings also, Jain kings also. 𝐂𝐤, great Jain king from Odisha, the first century AD, first century BC. So to straitjacket all of them into Hindu makes, and the word Hindu itself acquired its connotation over time. उसके पैमाने बदलते रहे हैं. We can't use the word Hindu. What about Muslim? Is the middle era completely Muslim? What about Vijayanagar Empire? Is not Muslim. My main question is, why do you have to go by the religion of the kings? Makes no sense. And if you have to go by king's religion, then why is not British era Christian era? Right? It has to. If you have to be that consistent, then call British era Christian era. But the moment you call British era as Christian era, you understand it's nonsense. They were not imposing Christianity as such. Some of them may be, but not as a state, not as a colonizer. So जितना ये absurd है to call colonial era as Christian era, उतना ही absurd है to call medieval as Muslim and ancient as Hindu. It doesn't make any sense. So this kind of chronological framework is not useful. So Indian historians rejected it totally. What they brought in its place was something called as ancient, medieval, and modern. This is what we also use today. This is what we also use today. But this kind of framework is also, it has its own context. You know, ये पहली बार कब आया? When did people start to divide ancient, medieval, modern के sense में in their past, of their past? It was in modern time. ये यूरोप में शुरुआत होती है आज से 400-500 साल पहले. पहली बार लोग कहते हैं कि भाई वी आर ग्रेट, वी आर इन द ग्रेट एरा, वी आर प्रोग्रेसिंग, वी आर डेवलपिंग, वी आर मॉडर्न. And how can we say we are modern? When we can disown our forefathers as backward. हम तभी प्रोग्रेसिव कहलाएंगे जब हमारे पुरखे बैकवर्ड कहलाएंगे. इट हैज टू गो इन बाइनरी. सो व्हेन वी से वी आर मॉडर्न, मतलब हमसे पहले जो था इट वाज डार्क एज, इट वाज medieval age. And were we always dark? No. There was a remote past, the ancient remote classical past, when there was all greatness. That is ancient. For them it is Greek and Roman history. So in the European context, they created for their own history this kind of tripartite division. आज से 200-400-500 साल पहले. And these terms are not neutral. They are value laden terms. They mean modern matlab progressive, medieval matlab dark age, backward, daldal, kharab, and ancient matlab the gone bygone era of great achievement. So these are the value laden terms in. Do we agree with that? Ancient matlab great हमेशा रहा है, उसमें कुछ problem नहीं था. And medieval was always dark. When you bring this thing in India, what do you think? The ancient period was great and medieval was dark age? It was not. What about Mughal Empire? What about Vijayanagar Empire? They also have their own bright spots. We can't disown entire medieval as dark by default. We can't extol entire ancient as great by default. And neither is modern very modern. कहाँ modernity? Complete वो तो होती नहीं है completely modernity. So this thing is also therefore problematic. But क्या करें? करें तो क्या करें? We have to use something. History has to have some divisions, some periods. So we go with this. We go with this template. But historians today don't agree with this template completely. आज का जो इतिहास की किताबें पढ़ोगे तो they have got for some micro divisions. For example, today when you look at the periods, हम कैसे देखते हैं उसको? We have ancient, then we have early medieval, then we have high, or let us call it late medieval बाद में. Then we go to early modern. Then we go to late modern. और आज क्या है? Maybe post modern. Who knows? Right? So ancient to early medieval to late medieval. So we have to subdivide, subcategory. There was a great historian called Michael Hodgson. Hodgson साहब ने History of Islam लिखी है 3 वॉल्यूम, बहुत बढ़िया. What he says, the progress of knowledge is the progress of precision of terms. How accurately you can define things. Initial definition was Hindu, Muslim, British. शुरुआत हुई है. Then we went for ancient, medieval, modern. Then we went for even further categories. Terms are getting defined more and more sharply over time. That is the progress of knowledge. More accurate and more precise terms getting defined. That is how knowledge progresses. That is what we are doing. Now, why is this important? Because for each of them, we have to understand the certain characteristics. And more often than not, UPSC questions can be easily associated with those characteristics. Example देता हूँ, UPSC ने सवाल पूछा था, tell me about the society of medieval India from the temple sculptures. Sculptures on the temples, आपको क्या प्रतीत होता है उस जमाने के समाज के बारे में? What can you tell? Now, when you see, you know, you have to write about society of this era through the examples of temples. You need to understand what you can't say कि भाई caste system थी, class system थी, जो patriarchy थी, वो तो हमेशा थी. It was in ancient also, middle also, modern में भी है. But when you want to point out specific features of medieval India, they should be specific to medieval India. That you can do only when you know what is the meaning of medieval India. So these periods are very important to be understood for the exam point of view. That we shall do in detail. Then we come to this change. How is this change happen? This change happens in multiple ways. It evolves. History को कुछ लोग ये भी कहते हैं, it's a study of change and continuity both. Some things change, some things continue as they were earlier. Not everything changes suddenly. Some things change, some things don't change. My question is, the things which change, how and why? How and why they change? That is where we enter the other soul of history, and that is the causation. the causation. The study of history is study of the causes. Study of history is study of the causes. Something happened. Why? Go back to the same example that we had. We have these stars in the sky, but we want to look for not the stars, but asterism, nakshatra. Nakshatra is the something that connects this star with this star, this to this to this to this. You create some design like this. When you go through evidences in history, you find the events. कि भाई Babur came to India and Panipat was fought in 1526. The second Panipat was in 1550s. Third, 1761. These are the events. But what connects them is the line invisible. What is the cause? What is the cause? The causation is a study. It's the soul of history. एक होता है, why did India get colonized? Why the Aryans composed Vedas? Why were Mughals building Taj Mahal? Causes. Why was Buddhism born in 6th century BC? The most famous thing, why was Buddhism born in 6th century BC only? Why not earlier? Why not later? When you enter to why, causation. That is the soul of history. ये क्यों हुआ? Not only क्या हुआ, but and you can't just give it. In over time, people have different theories of causation. For example, if you read the old books, they would say that ये क्यों हुआ? भगवान की इच्छा थी, है ना? Divine cause. For example, I am Lashkar-e-Islam. When we conquer the enemy, हमने क्यों जीता? क्योंकि Islam. History is determined by the divinity. हमारा भगवान हमारे साथ है. So that is one interpretation. Some people believe in that. Historians generally look for deeper causes. But old historians wrote it that way. If you go to Delhi Sultanate, you read the writing of Barni or Siraj or Afif, etc. You will find कि वो क्यों कहते हैं कि भाई the Sultan of Delhi went to this region and defeated them. क्यों हुआ? क्योंकि भगवान की कृपा थी. So religion, divine intervention. But उससे तो फिर क्यों everything is divine, then it makes no sense. Then some other historians say, ना ना divine is fine. Cause क्यों होते वो आदमी जो था was a great person. Napoleon was great. He fought so many battles and won most of. It was Arthur Wellesley who was great, who defeated Napoleon in Battle of Waterloo. It was Samrat Ashok who was great, therefore he brought Ahimsa ki policy. Buddha personally was great, spiritual master. He had that spiritual attainment, so he started Buddhism. So you focus on great heroes. Great heroes. Akbar was great, so he founded the proper structure of Mughal Empire. So you look for causation in the capacity of great heroes. Great hero theory. No more divine. Great hero theory. If you read कौटिल्य अर्थशास्त्र, कौटिल्य कहता है उसमें ये ऐसा समय क्यों आया, इसके लिए जिम्मेदार कौन है? तो राजा कालस्य कारणम. Raja is the reason of the time. The king creates the time, not the other way around. राजा कालस्य कारणम. तो राजा जो है उसकी क्षमता will matter. प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया कैसा है, डिटरमाइन इंडिया कहाँ जाएगा. Great man theory. Now, do you think that everything is done by Prime Minister alone today? No. Maybe he has some role, no doubt, but not everything is in his capacity. Any countries, not possible. So we don't completely trust in this great hero theory also. Then, what is the other reason? If not divine, if not great hero, तो तीसरा कारण दिया जाता है कॉजेशन में, इतिहास में, नसीब में लिखा था, तो होना ही था, कि भाग में ऐसा था. बेस्ट एग्जाम्पल इंडिया में क्या है? वक्त से पहले और समय से पहले और नसीब से ज्यादा किसी को कुछ नहीं मिलता. Now how do you know? You can't prove it ever. It's not falsifiable. It's not provable. तो भी इसका कोई मतलब नहीं है. यहाँ पे लिखा था, भाग ऐसे ही था. अब ये डिवाइन फेट, इट्स अ फेट, फैटलिज्म. दैट इज वन अनदर वे ऑफ होना ही था, मुगल एम्पायर बनना ही था, अंग्रेजों को भगना ही था. ऐसे नहीं होता ना. यू हैव टू डू सम एफर्ट्स. So the third, for first divine intervention, great hero, and fate. तो ये 3 कॉजेस को हम अभी छोड़ देते हैं, वो ज़माना चला गया। दिस इज़ द हिस्ट्री रिटन इन मेडिवल टाइम, इन एंशिएंट टाइम और until last century. Now we look for deeper causes. For example, if you are a Marxist, you would look at the economic structure, economy and technology as the driving force. Once technology changes, economy changes, it will change politics and society automatically, and that will also change religion. For example, iron technology. Pehle, humans used to use in ancient time copper and bronze. Iron was not used. Once iron was used, once the technology of iron was evolved, then human capacity increased over land and forest and agriculture, more surplus, more production. Once you have more surplus, you start trading it. When the trade starts, you have some people who don't need to do agriculture, they can do other things because one person can grow food for 5 people now. पहले पॉसिबल नहीं था, हर एक को अपनी खेती करनी पड़ती थी. Now it's not necessary. The moment you have surplus due to iron, you can have trade, you can have crafts, you can have secondary and tertiary economy developing. The moment you have that, you have cities also. Cities are possible only when there is agricultural surplus. वरना हर आप और मैं अपना खाना बनाए जाके किसान बन जाए. And once you have cities, then the society is different, economy is different, the politics is different. तो पहले वाले रूल अब काम नहीं करेंगे. पहला धर्म जो था वो गांव का धर्म था, वैदिक रिलीजन. Now we have urban India. The Vedic ideas are not found very appropriate in new era. People have different needs, and that's when comes Buddha. When India is urbanized. So the emergence of Buddha, as per Marxist historians, is predicated upon the urbanization. That is predicated upon agricultural surplus. That is predicated upon iron too. तो जब लोहा आया तब बुद्धा बना. So we are not looking at the divine intervention of God to send Buddha on the earth. We are not looking at him being great human also having this spiritual. वो तो होगा. That may be true, but a Marxist would look at iron implements, iron tools, into surplus to urbanization to change of religion, demand for change of religion, then people supporting Buddhism. लोहा आया इसलिए बुद्धा आया. That's a Marxist technological determinism. So it is a different type of causation. You can have many more factors in randomness also. My point is that when you look at history, look at history of causation. Why? That is how पूरा पूरा हिस्ट्री का खेल जो है वो कॉजेशन का खेल है. Which cause is more appropriate for which reason, which event? It depends on ideology also, depends on perspective also, and depends on certain facts also. Now, the last point I would study is a very famous statement by E.H. Carr in his Cambridge lectures in 1960s. His history is a continuous dialogue between past and present. Past and present. It is not merely about past. It's a dialogue between past and present. So past is past, it is happened, it is occurred, it is dead, it is gone. But the present is changing. And therefore, history also keeps changing. History is not a static subject. ये बहुत लोगों की गलत फहमी होती है. They think history is static. History is not static. I went to this bookshop here in ORN. आज से 15 साल पुरानी बात है. I wanted to buy one history book of some author. तब तो इतने बड़े शॉप्स होते नहीं थे. So this book author gave me this bookshop. The bookshop owner said कि भाई let me see, मेरे पास वो किताब है. कि अंदर चला गया वो. He took 5 minutes. He came back. He had very old copy. पन्ने पीले धूल थी. And then झटके उसने ले लो हिस्ट्री बुक आपकी. मैंने कहा भैया दिस इज अ वेरी ओल्ड बुक. तो उस दुकानदार ने देखा किताब, इतिहास किताब है, क्या बदलेगा, नया पुराना ले लो किताब। तो that is his point. He thinks history, then history changes. It is not static. I'll give an example. Lot of examples. Today we are in the era of post-COVID. Suddenly, the occurrence of COVID has created urge to know the history of epidemics. When we study modern India in NCERT, there is no mention of Spanish flu. There is hardly any mention of plague epidemics. But those epidemics have devastated Indian society, created massive economic political consequences also. हमने इनको भूल गए थे. Now we cannot write history of modern India without referring to plague of 1899, without referring to Spanish flu of 1919, 1920s, etc. We can't do that. ये अब क्योंकि अब कोविड हो गया, मॉडर्न इंडिया की हिस्ट्री चेंज हो गई. Think of feminism. Yesterday we celebrated Women's Day. Now today a lot of historians have feminist perspective. तो जब पुराने जमाने में वेद पढ़ते थे, वैदिक हिस्ट्री पढ़ी जाती थी, तब वी फोकस्ड ऑन द गॉड्स, द यज्ञास, द टेक्नोलॉजिकल चेंज, द क्राफ्ट्स, एटसेट्रा. नाउ व्हेन वी स्टडी वेदास, एक सवाल पूछा जाता है, व्हाट वेर वुमेन डूइंग बैक देन? ओके, वी हैव सम ग्रेट फीमेल सीयर्स कॉल्ड एज ब्रह्मवादिनीज who composed some of the Vedas, but they are very few in number. What about majority of women? Do they have equality of treatment? Especially in case of those who are subaltern and oppressed, we have das and dasyus, dasas. Okay, dason की बात होती है. What about dasi, the female dasis? There is a very famous question by Uma Chakravarti. She says, whatever happened to Vedic dasi? कहाँ पे? She is invisible. ये सवाल तो हमने पहले पूछा नहीं वेदों को. अब Chandal was the initial phase of the beginning of untouchability. इनके साथ देखो, एक तो एसटी अलग हो जाता है, वो तो ट्राइबल, वो तो डिफरेंट थिंग. एससी में से कुछ पुराने होंगे, ठीक है, बट द टर्म ग्रेजुअली डिसअपियर्स इन द मेडिवल टाइम. इट इज ओनली इन एंशिएंट टाइम. My main point is that we'll discuss those things also. How the caste system evolved, how untouchability evolved, हमें पढ़ना है सारा. My main point is look at Harappa. Today in the 21st century, we are discussing a lot of climate change, climate change, climate change. Now we ask to Harappa, भाई Harappa कैसे खत्म हुआ? What was the role of environment in that? What was the role of climate change in that? That is the question that we ask in last 15, 20 years only, 30 years maybe. क्योंकि हम आज तो our present needs are changing, so the kind of questions we ask towards the past, that is very important. Past is the same. Questions are determined by the present. So it's a continuous dialogue between past and the present. That is E.H. Carr's very famous statement. And before we end this portion, this section of our discussion, the last point is this: past is a different country. Understand that. Because social media debates have done a lot of harm also, a lot of good also, a lot of harm as well. We have to understand past is a past. But respect, जैसे पुरुषोत्तम अग्रवाल सर कहते भी है, respect the pastness of the past. अतीत के अतीतपन का सम्मान करना चाहिए. We should be able to detach ourselves from the past. When why I'm telling this, the people seem to have become somewhat more sensitive than maybe pre-COVID era. So when I will be teaching you history of ancient time, of medieval time, of culture, of religion, of philosophy, I would like you to look at the things in a dispassionate way. I also come from some religion, some region, some community, but I keep all of that outside the classroom when I stand here. I'm discussing as a teacher, I'm quoting scholars. I expect same thing from you. You may also come from some region, some religion, some caste, some language background, but please do not allow that to intermix with study of history. We are going to join Indian Civil Services. We are supposed to represent entire people of India. उसमें बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम है. आई गिव एन एग्जांपल. Many years ago, 4-5 साल पहले, when I was teaching Vedic India, I was discussing how the Vedic religion evolved from early Vedic to later Vedic. In that, the point of discussion was how the gods changed. In the early Vedic era, Indra, Varuna are more important. In later Vedic era, these gods are no more important. You have Vishnu and other gods emerging as more prominent. Ab, if you come from a tradition, it might happen with some of you that we don't accept that some gods are now no more important and other gods become important in later era. टाइम के साथ चीजें चेंज होती है. हम लेते हैं रिलीजन इज इन beyond, it's a timeless, it is not timeless, it changes with time. It may have some essence, but it evolves with time. Indian human society evolves, human biology evolves, gods also evolve. So some student got offended in the class. मैंने कहा भाई कैसे, मतलब what can I do? I'm telling what is there in the scholarly literature. तो क्लास में नारे लगाने लग गया. हमने उसको क्लास से निकाल दिया नमस्कार के भाई क्या करें. Don't get offended with this. This is just an example. Example, when you go to medieval India, we have had initially I used to entertain those discussions also in detail. कि मंदिर क्यों तोड़े? Discussion about causes, religious cause, political cause, economic cause, and हम if you want we can do that debate in the class, but in a scholarly manner. A scholarly manner. भावनाओं को उद्दीपित भी बिना किए. But understand that UPSC is not interested in those debates anymore. UPSC is not going to ask you नालंदा किसने जलाया. UPSC will ask you the greatness of Indian education in ancient time. So the topics in which social media is interested are different topics, and topics in which UPSC is interested are different topics. You should be interested in those topics also, UPSC वाले, क्योंकि हम वहाँ इसके लिए यहाँ पे एग्जाम क्लियर करनी है हमें. बाकी वाले आएंगे, if you want we can touch upon them, we can discuss some of them for general curiosity, but that is not for the exam, and keep the two things separate. Okay, that is my, इसलिए past is a foreign country, past is a past, respect the pastness of the past. Okay, now what do we intend to do over next few days? Firstly, we will have about 25 to 28 lectures to cover ancient and medieval with culture. 25 to 28 lectures, in which I will pick up chronology only. We'll go era by era. In every era, we'll discuss the politics, then admin, then economy, then society, then religion, philosophy, and then culture. A typical structure of every unit. Let us say Gupta era, same sequence. Mauryan era, same sequence. Now, from the prelims point of view, we know already that this part is where from 80% questions come, and this part is from where only 20% questions come. And in the mains, in the main exam, GS1, only this part exists. This part is not even there in the main examination. But we still have to do this part. Firstly, it is there in prelims. You have to do it. And secondly, we cannot understand change of religion, philosophy, and culture by bypassing this part. Because this change is on the grid of political change, economic change. ये समझे बिना, this is a main framework in which context you understand these things. So to study all the things. But when we do practice of questions, when we emphasize, when you go in details, this part will get more exposure. Yeah. Now let me discuss this culture part for some. This is a new thing for most of you. Most of you don't study culture as such. UPSC is interested in art and culture a lot. No, culture को सीखना पड़ता. Culture is not easily known to us because of many reasons. One of them being all of us are, if I can use it, resident non-Indians. Resident non-Indians. So we are physically in India. We think we are Indians, but we hardly know what is the meaning of India. There's a very famous clip on YouTube by Jawad Akhtar from Rekhta from 10-15 years ago. In that, Akhtar Saab कहते हैं, he says, I go to the schools and meet many young children and I ask them, do you love India? They say, yes, we love India. हम इंडिया से मोहब्बत करते हैं. Then Jawad Akhtar says, I asked two students in the school, अच्छा तुम्हें इंडिया के बारे में क्या पता है? ना तुम्हें इंडिया के खाना पसंद है, ना इंडिया के कपड़े पसंद है, ना कोई इंडियन भाषा पसंद है, ना है कि गाने सुनते हो. तुम्हें इंडिया का पसंद क्या है जो इतना दावा करते हो मोहब्बत का देश से प्यार करता हूँ. So our food, our entertainment, our clothing, our entire things are no more Indian traditional culture. We have changed massively. So I am not judging here from judgment point of view. My point is that when we come to UPSC, we need to know the culture, and we don't know our own culture very well. That is my observation for last so many years. संस्कृत एक कहावत है कि what differentiates a human from animal. We are animals, but we are also humans. Why are we special type of animal? What makes us human separate from other animals? वो तो बाकी भी में ऊपर नीचे हो सकती है, but है सब में. Right wrong is an example of that. What do we have culture? साहित्य संगीत कला. एक जो संस्कृत में एक साहित्य संगीत कला विहीनः साक्षात पशु पुच्छ विषाणहीनः. साहित्य संगीत कला अगर नहीं है तो आप जानवर हो जिनकी पूंछ नहीं है और सींग नहीं है, वैसे जानवर ही हो आप. तो what is animal? एनिमल इंस्टिंक्ट्स के चार: आहार, निद्रा, भय, मैथुन. You have hunger, go to sleep, you are afraid, and we need carnal pleasure. Only four things, they are common to all animals. Carnal sex, carnal pleasure, ये चार चीजें हैं. आहार, निद्रा, भय एंड मैथुन. These are common to humans and animals. अगर आप यही चार चीजें कर रहे हो तो आप जानवर ही हो. अब आपको जानवर से एक लेवल ऊपर इंसान कौन बनाएगा? तो कल्चर बनाए. साहित्य संगीत कला विहीनः साक्षात पशु पुच्छ विषाणहीनः. So culture is important anyway to become human. On top of that, it is more important for clearing the exam. Very important for both prelims 10 questions and GS1 3 questions in the mains. When think of culture in UPSC, what is our scope? What is our scope? Our scope is generally three things. One is visual arts, other is literary arts, and third is performing arts. These are three main brackets in which we study culture. Visual arts में क्या आता है? First thing is architecture. Yes, painting भी है, but from exam point of view, the most important is architecture. It is mentioned separately in the syllabus also of main architecture. This visual art is a very tangible form. Performing art is intangible, visual is tangible. In architecture, what do we study? We have religious architecture, we have stupas, we have rock cut caves. We study all of them in detail. We study temples, we study mosques, we also study minars. In modern में कम गॉथिक वगैरह वो नहीं पढ़ते हम, but we have religious architecture. Apart from religious architecture, we have funerary memorial architecture. We may have the tombs, Taj Mahal type. We may have also Kirti Stambh, Qutub Minar. These are the memorial type architecture. Then we have public civic architecture. We have bridge, hammam, sarai, etc. Markets. तीन हो गए. Then we have domestic architecture. अपने private घर कैसे होते हैं? That we study in हड़प्पा. घर कैसे थे? You have hydraulic architecture, step wells and dams and tanks. We have variety of types. We have military architecture. Fortifications. We have 2 serial nominations in UNESCO. इन राजस्थान के फोर्ट, एक मराठा मिलिट्री आर्किटेक्चर, तीसरा दखन का दे चुके हैं अभी और एक्सेप्ट होना बाकी है. So military architecture. We also have royal architecture, the palaces, the courts, Diwan-e Khas, Diwan-e Aam. We also have these Charbagh royal pleasure resorts, etc. A variety of architecture. Our primary interest is gonna be in religious architecture. Stupas, caves, temples, Indo-Islamic architecture, etc. That is our main thing. वहीं से सवाल आते हैं. We'll touch all of them and focus here more. Architecture is very important both for pre and mains. Almost मतलब our entire handouts में से लगभग 70-80 pages will be only on architecture, and I will give them with lots of photos. So visual arts has to be studied visually. Okay. Then we have sculpture also. Sculpture is again very important. We are basically a country of idol worshippers. We have lots of idols of gods, and Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, they are omnipresent. But idols are not same always. They have evolved over time. Sculpture of gods, especially Buddha, is important. Apart from that, we have sculptures of masses. Terracotta ho ya aur koi ho. We have to study those also. And different technologies. Some sculptures wood, some in stone, some in terracotta, some in metal. Nataraja Murti of Chola Empire in bronze. Panchadhatu, Ashtadhatu. Etc. We have to study sculpture in detail, how it evolves with time. Especially the iconography of sculpture, the symbolism of sculpture. What disposition, for example, anybody does any dance here? Classical dance, Bharatnatyam, Kuchipudi, Kathakali. So there is position, right? Brahma Sutra. What is sama position? Brahma Sutra. This is the, if you know music, we have the sa, sam, sa ke sam ko, sam, the basic note. You take entire avartana and come back to basic note. है ना, सम पे आ गए कहते हैं. Same thing in dance, you come back to Brahma Sutra. So we have to understand that we have to, in sculpture, these positions are depicted. We understand ये त्रिभंगा है, ये अतिभंगा है, ये चौक है, ये कौन सी position है. If Buddha is doing this versus this, what does it mean, etc. So you have to do iconography also. अगर हाथ में शंख चक्र गदा पद्म है तो विष्णु ही होगा. अगर it looks like Buddha but he has ornaments, he is not Buddha, he is Bodhisattva, etc. We should study sculptures iconography as well. Then we have, as you rightly said, the painting. We start painting from Bhimbetka, the prehistoric painting, and we come till modern times. Bharat Mata. You know, the entire journey of thousands of years. The prehistoric painting, then in the historic era, we have Ajanta paintings. Those are all murals, the wall paintings. In the medieval time, we have paper coming to India. Paper, कागज इंडिया में आता है 13वीं सदी में, 13th century. पहले कागज था ही नहीं. We have Bhurjapatra and other things. So once kagas comes, we start painting on the kagas. And those are very small miniature paintings or perhaps book illustration. We study in the ancient time murals, in the medieval time the miniature painting. Entire history of painting we have to study, how paintings evolve with time. And mind well, painting has been very important to Indians. आज लगता है पेंटिंग कौन कर एलिमेंट्री इंटरमीडिएट के बाद पेंटिंग छोड़ देते हैं लोग. It's not true. If you read Kalidas, in Kalidas's poetry and drama, every main character is connected to painting in one way or another. When there is Kumara Sambhavam, in Kumara Sambhavam, Shiva is painting Parvati. In Abhigyana Shakuntalam, we have painting of Shakuntalam. If you go to Malavika Agnimitram, तो अग्निमित्र जब मालविका को देश से निकाल दिया जाता है, अग्निमित्र को याद में तड़पता रहता है. He looks at her painting. If you forget Kalidas, his contemporary, we have Vatsayan who wrote Kama Sutra. In Kama Sutra, if you read Kama Sutra, he talks about every respectable citizen in India should have Chitrashala at home. अब आप घर पे कोई मेहमान आते हैं तो आप आपके प्राउड पोजेशंस दिखाते हो, भाई देखो मेरे पास ये है, मेरे पास ये कला है। छोटे बच्चे को बोलते गाना गा के दिखा, राइट? ये पोइट्री रिसाइट करके दिखा। वॉट एवर यू हैव टू डिस्प्ले, दिस इज सोशल इंटरेक्शन। इन एंशिएंट इंडिया द सोशल इंटरेक्शन कंसिस्टेड ऑफ पेंटिंग। मेहमान आएंगे, हमको पेंटिंग दिखाएंगे। अगर आपकी इज्जत है, मतलब आपके घर में पेंटिंग का एक कमरा है, आपको पेंटिंग आती है, देन यू हैव सोशल रिस्पेक्ट। पेंटिंग वाज सो इंपॉर्टेंट इंडियन। एंड लुक एट इंडियन हाउसेस, इंडियन हाउसेस की दीवार, ये जो सफेद गंदगी है यहाँ पे, इंडियन हाउसेस वेर नेवर लाइक दिस। नाउ वी हैव दिस मॉडर्न एस्थेटिक, ये सफेद, ये कैसे कपड़े, ये कपड़े है। आई एम नॉट जोकिंग। लुक एट ऑल योर क्लोथ्स, ऑलमोस्ट प्लेन क्लोथ्स। दिस इज नॉट इंडियन कल्चर। पेंटिंग, कपड़ों की बांधनी देखो, देखो, यू हैव डिफरेंट पैटर्न्स। क्या है यहाँ तो, ये तो शी इज वेरी फेमस, बनी ठनी, यू नो बनी ठनी फ्रॉम किशनगढ़ स्कूल ऑफ राजस्थान, विल स्टडी दिस पेंटिंग ऑल्सो। ये अपने सिलेबस में है, इसके ऊपर सवाल पूछ चुकी है, सवाल ऑलरेडी बनी ठनी के ऊपर। ठीक है, तो शी इज राधा भी है और बनी ठनी भी है एट द सेम टाइम, फ्रॉम 18th सेंचुरी राजस्थान। तो माय मेन पॉइंट इज, इंडिया में पेंटिंग हैज ऑलवेज बीन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। इफ यू गो टू नॉर्थ राजस्थान, शेखावटी एरिया, शेखावती हवेलीज, इज अ ग्रेट पेंटिंग। You go to Kerala, in Mattancherry Palace, great paintings. Bundi Palace, great paintings. If you go to even tribal hamlets, वारली पेंटिंग्स, दीवार पे वारली पेंटिंग, घर का पेंटिंग है वो। आप रंगोली अल्पना क्यों करते हो? तो डिजाइन पैटर्न ऑफ पेंटिंग, अदर फॉर्मेट ऑफ पेंटिंग। Painting has been very intimately connected to our culture. We have largely started to forget it. But in history syllabus, UPSC wants us to know the history of painting. ठीक है? Then we have other also, but these are the three main visual arts. बाकी भी है, हम देखेंगे, but these are the three main things. Then we go to literary art. यहाँ पे we have religious literature. We have to study. हम पूरा एक लेक्चर लेंगे, I'll bring Vedas in class. क्लास में वेद लेके आऊंगा मैं, to study Vedas. I know English, तो इंग्लिश में पढ़ेंगे थोड़ा सा. But we also to study Tamil literature, Sangam literature. I have Sangam literature translation also. I'll bring that as well in the class. Ancient Tamil poetry. Then we have to go for Prakrut poetry also. We have to study regional poems, regional literature, which is religious also, which is secular also. In secular, we have different formats. We have entertainment, we'll discuss Kalidas. We'll discuss Sanskrit poetry, we'll discuss drama. We have scholarly literature. जो नए एनसीईआरटी आ रहे हैं अभी, जो अभी लिखे जा रहे हैं, 6, 7, 8 तो आ चुका है, 9, 10 बाकी है. If you see those, you'll clearly see they focus a lot on Aryabhatta and other people. Varaha Mihir, Bhaskaracharya. So to study those also. I'll bring their translations as well. थोड़ा सा, that we don't have to go in detail. Then we have to have Dharma Shastras, Manusmriti, Yadnavalkya Smriti, other Smritis. I'll discuss those in class. I'll bring the translations of that also. In the medieval time, we have histories, Charitaras and Tarikhs. I have Aine Akbar, I'll bring Aine Akbar in the class of Abul Fazl. So we have to study different type of literature. That's a primary source for religious, scholarly, entertainment, historic, and all categories of literature. It's a very important. UPSC asks a lot of questions on literature, a lot of them. 10 सवाल आते हैं हर साल आर्ट एंड कल्चर के, 2 सवाल तो लिटरेचर के होते हैं. So we study all those things. And then the performing arts. In the performing arts, our focus will remain largely on firstly classical arts. Classical. There are folk arts also, but folk arts के बारे में सवाल 5-7 साल में एक आध सवाल शायद आ जाए. So UPSC is more interested in classical arts. In classical, we first discuss Natya Shastra. By Bharata Muni. It is the fundamental book of Indian aesthetics, rasa and bhava. You know, when we go and enjoy some drama or we enjoy some movie or maybe serial, हम कौन होते हैं? रसिक. रसिक क्यों होते हैं? Because in our mind, rasa is produced. What are the rasa? The nava rasas. शृंगारवीर करुणाद्भुत हास्य भयानकः विवत्सरौद्रो शांतश्च एते नवरसा मताः. 9 rasas are there. Shringar, Veer, Karuna, Adbhuta, Hasya, Bhayanaka, Vivhatsa, Raudra, and Shanta. Although Bharata Muni in this book talked of only 8 rasas, not 9 rasas. Shanta ras 1000 साल बाद add किया गया है by Abhinav Gupta. We'll discuss that. So my main point is Bhava, Rasa, Abhinaya, etc. We will discuss Indian aesthetics. And once इसके लिए 1 घंटा काफी है. But that aesthetics and that understanding of Natya Shastra creates the foundation to understand performing arts of classical nature. इसमें we study 3 things. One is dance, there is drama, and there is music. In all 3 of them, India has achieved great heights. In case of dance, we have various classical dances. Although I can't dance, I will show you lot of photos and videos. We have drama. Drama में Indian drama tradition is comparable to ancient Greek culture. अगर ग्रीस में they have great tragedies, Indians don't have tragedies. इंडिया में रूल है एज पर भरत मुनि ट्रेजेडी नहीं चाहिए. अगर डांस में म्यूजिक हो, बीच में कितनी कितनी ट्रेजेडी को एंड हैज टू बी वेरी हैप्पी एंडिंग. आज की बॉलीवुड मूवी हैप्पी एंडिंग में क्यों होती है? तो भरत मुनि, आई एम नॉट जोकिंग, वेरी फ्यू मूवीज आर ट्रेजेडीज इन इंडिया. इवन टुडे वी कांट डाइजेस्ट दैट. इन एवरी मूवी डांस ड्रामा क्यों होता है? भरत मुनि, बिकॉज दैट इज अवर ट्रेडिशन ऑफ संगीत नाटक. And then we have a tradition of Vidushaka also, Sutradhar and Vidushak. Why do you think you have Johnny Lever, Bharat Muni? Because that's a typical character that has to be there in our dramas for centuries. Bollywood is quintessentially Indian tradition without you knowing that. We'll discuss drama also and music. India is Wahid aisa mulk hai. It's the only country in the world which has got 2 classical musics, not one. We're Hindustani, Carnatic. We have to look at the entire evolution of Hindustani and Carnatic. Various books, various forms, various performers, various events. सवाल आते हैं वहाँ. इसी साल सवाल पूछा 2 साल पहले. The formation or the foundation of गांधर्व महाविद्यालय कहाँ पे हुआ? लाहौर में हुआ था. पलुस्कर साहब. It's a very basic question if you know the Hindustani music के system की evolution. So to do that. Now music, I know thoda sa. I used to play harmonium for many years. Then I stopped. So on music, I can be personally involved in teaching you things if you require, but we don't need for class. नहीं करेंगे हम. So ये वाला part है dance. If you understand from exam point of view, of the 3 things, what is most important are the first 2. Visual arts and literary arts are more important statistically. More questions come from there. Performing arts से एक question आ जाता है. We'll do that. This entire thing will take about 3 lectures, not more than that. इसको हम सबसे end में करेंगे. Because this thing will not go with any chronological. पहले हम ancient का culture, medieval का culture करेंगे. जब सब खत्म हो जाएगा, at the end we'll do this to 3 lectures. It is independent unit. ठीक है? Any doubts so far? So my format will be to go chronologically. In each chronology I will cover this, and when I cover religion, philosophy and culture, I will automatically cover visual arts and literature then and there. What I will not cover era wise is performing. ये सबसे end में अलग से इकट्ठा 3 lecture करेंगे. There it will be easily doable. Now what I expect from you in this class regularly, I will give you comprehensive handout. Class notes will be more than sufficient. I will give the notes in a very well structured manner which contains all the facts, entire syllabus, because generally NCERTs do not contain history of culture very well. For culture, for religion, for philosophy, NCERTs are not good. For politics, economy, society, they are good. So we shall refer to NCERT also if you want. I will discuss that also in a while. But for religion, philosophy, culture, you don't have one single good book available. So there is no option but to rely on our notes. They are very comprehensive. Will contain also lots of photos. By the end of the course, पूरे जो printouts होंगे, they will be around 400 to 500 pages. They will cover ancient and medieval and art and culture completely with all the PYQs printed inside that and with all the photos also. So chapter by chapter, I'll give you handouts every day. Chapter by chapter, we'll cover all the PYQs of prelims and mains in the class. What I want you to do is firstly focus in the class, attend the lectures, ask questions. Secondly, once you go home, you are supposed to do two things every single day without fail. Firstly, revise the handout. It may take 1 hour, 1.5 hours. And while revising, immediately make 1 page summary. That summary is going to be very, very, very helpful. Because शुरू में तो मजा आता है, आफ्टर 2 weeks what happens कि थोड़े नोट्स थोड़े बल्कि हो जाते हैं, भाई 100 पन्ने हो गए, अब एग्जाम आ गई संडे की, कैसे रिवाइज करेंगे? Because you have to revise before every Sunday exam, and that revision becomes possible only when you have short notes, and short notes randomly नहीं बनते अचानक से end में. What we shall do in every class, after you go home, you have to pick 1 pager summary of the class handout. अब वो summary कैसे बनानी है, I will tell you. Don't worry, I will tell you how to make a summary also. But you have to do that every single. The first thing you do go home, revise and make summary. And second thing, I will give you one question to write the answer and submit it. We'll have the facility of submission also, it will get evaluated. For next 1 month, you are writing one answer every single day without fail and then giving tests on Sundays. अगर आप ये नहीं करते हो तो क्लास करने का कोई फायदा नहीं. I am very upfront about it. Now, let me come back to sources. I still insist our notes will be very comprehensive, but one should read some NCERT for some satisfaction. Now, which NCERT to read? तो उसके लिए थोड़ा सा I'll take your 2 minutes and discuss the history of NCERT also. हर चीज का इतिहास होता है. NCERT का भी इतिहास अपना है, इतिहास का इतिहास है. So NCERT is the oldest one we have that are today available. I have brought 2 of them with me also, one for ancient and one for medieval, are the ones which were written in 1990s. 1990s. दिखाऊंगा मैं आपको. We have these old NCERTs. इसमें you have for ancient India R.S. Sharma, and for medieval India you have Satish Chandra. Both of them are now dead. Both of them were card holder communists. Both of them wrote great NCERTs. Now, despite them being communists, some of you may not be communists today. I am not for sure, but we have no other option but to read those books because those are good books. Those are comprehensive books. Those are chronological books. What happened that these books were read in 1980s and 1990s, and then in the NDA 1, in the Vajpayee era, these books were banned. Once they were put out of circulation, the authors had the right to the books, so they went to private publication, and then the books were published privately later on. So these are the books published. One by Oxford publication, R.S. Sharma's Ancient India NCERT. They don't call it NCERT anymore. There is some 5% change. थोड़ा ऊपर नीचे किया, 2-4 लाइन जोड़ दिया है, but it is essentially NCERT only of Ancient India. And this is by Satish Chandra. This is published by Orient Black Swan, another very respectable publication house. And this is Medieval India, Satish Chandra. It used to be NCERT. If you go to market, you will find old NCERT का printout also. Xerox मिल जाएगा आपको. You can do that also. वो क्या ये क्या एक ही बात, ये आसानी से मिल जाता है Amazon पे, तो लोगों के पास ये होता है. It has 5% change with some addition. छोटा छोटा addition किया हुआ है तो उससे कि ये किताब अच्छी बने. But if you want to read NCERT version, you can do that. This is nothing but 95% NCERT only. He published privately once it was banned. Then in the second era, in the Vajpayee era, these books were replaced by other authors. यहाँ पे for ancient India we have Makhan Lal, he is the author, and for medieval Meenakshi Jain, he is the author. Now I have read these books also. I don't have them in print, but they're available online in PDF format. They follow again the same pattern of chronological evolution. And चैप्टर सर थोड़ा तो कुछ एम्फोसिस का डिफरेंस है, थोड़ा सा लेफ्ट विंग राइट विंग हुआ है, बट largely the facts are the same line. Then came the UPA era. In UPA era, these books were banned. But rather than going back to the old NCERT, what UPA did, ये इतिहास के लिखने की परंपरा ही खत्म. We have a new education policy and national curriculum framework that came in 2005-2006, and they composed new types of books. What is new there? There was no emphasis on chronology. I think you have seen those books. We call them new NCERTs. For ancient India, in 6th, 7th, we have our pasts, and for medieval also our pasts, part 1, part 2, and then we have themes in 11, 12 themes. So our past 6th standard is ancient, our past 7th standard is medieval. Themes, the first book is ancient, themes, the second book is medieval. So these are good books, they update the idea of history. फर्क क्या है? एक तो these are no more single author books like they were single author books. अब entire team of historians come together, there are different chapters. Secondly, they do not cover entire timeline. So although on one hand the good thing for us that they have updates and lots of new interesting facts, the bad thing for us that they don't cover things chronologically, which we need to do for exam. So these books therefore, despite being good, can't be our basic. Can't be. Then now what is happening? Now even these books are discarded in this new era, new regime, new books. Now you have 4 books. We call them, let us say, latest NCERTs. इसमें 6, 7, 8 किताबें आ चुकी है. 6, 7 is largely ancient. 8 is partly medieval, partly modern. So our past was 6, our past was 7, they are replaced. But themes are yet to be replaced. We are expecting abhi in the month of March we might have a 9th standard NCERT. 10th, 11th, 12th may come this year or next year. So they are in the process of getting changed. Once they come, then they will replace these books, themes 1, themes 2. So far we don't have 9, 10, 11, 12 books. Therefore, these books are not that usable right now. But they also bring some new thing. Focus on IKS, Indian Knowledge System. Indian Knowledge System. Culture. तो यहाँ पे जो कुछ है कल्चर की नई चीजें आ रही है. It is my job to include those parts from culture and add to our notes. ठीक है? It is my job to find facts from this and add to our notes. So if you want to read a book reading is good because of language, because of clarity, because of flow, etc. पढ़ना चाहते हो तो despite all of us not being communists, most of us, and despite these books becoming very old, we have no option but to read only those books. We can't bypass them. तो अगर आपको पढ़ना ही है, although I say my notes will be comprehensive, but एक किताब होना बुरी बात थोड़ी है. So I recommend these 2 books. R.S. Sharma, S. Chandra, NCERTs. You can find them on Amazon also, or you can find them in the market also. Okay? So whatever you study in the class, you can go home and read that part from this book. Although these books collectively are very heavy, because you see number of pages ज़्यादा है. And secondly, the problem इस किताब में is not number of pages. Problem मेरे लिए ये है कि UPSC का interest तो कहाँ पे है ज़्यादा सवाल पूछना? वो है culture पे. Exactly, art and culture. और वो यहाँ पे कम दिया हुआ गया है. Not much, maybe यहाँ पे this is 80% for us and this is 20%. But for these books, if this is 80% and this is 20%. It doesn't cover our complete purpose. There are NCERTs for art and culture also. 11, 12 की NCERT आती है in Indian art and culture. But those are very dry, very incomplete, very partial. I don't recommend them. Now, apart from NCERTs, there may be many other books also. Some people may go from Tamil Nadu, some may go from somebody as Lucent, some may go from private publication. You can do that, but I think we don't need anything of that. Almost everything is already सबकी छानबीन करके सब ढूंढ ढांड के हमने नोट में इंक्लूड कर लिया. So I'll give you handouts every single day. Those will be very comprehensive. Don't worry. Okay. Any doubt? Any query? तो हम कल मिलते हैं and we'll start proper study from tomorrow. I just wanted to create some background in your mind today. Tomorrow we'll have a handout. We'll start with prehistory, then gradually in this week we'll cover other things. By the end of this week, our idea is to cover prehistory and protohistory. ठीक है? Okay. In doubt online? No doubt? ठीक है. खुदा हाफिज. I will upload the handout in the evening. So by around 7 or 8 o'clock, I will upload the handout a day before the class, because I have to go home, update it with some slight details. For example, today we have, this time we have a budget. In the budget, government announced that there will be 15 sites of archaeology which shall be developed. We have Lothal, we have Dholavira, we have Leha Palace, we have Adichandalur in Tamil Nadu, etc. Bodh Gaya. So it's not that I can use my last year's note. New insertions have come up, I include those also. So every day before the lecture, I revise my handout a little bit, make some 5-10% changes to update it properly and then give it to you. इसलिए I cannot give you handouts in advance all, because आप जैसे lecture के साथ I am also updating my own notes. It's a process for me, so I can't provide you handouts in advance. 4 दिन पहले, 1 हफ्ता पहले, 2 दिन पहले नहीं दे पाऊंगा. मैं आपको शाम को 7 या 8 बजे तक अपलोड कर दूंगा, a day before the class. That is what I will try. This is primarily for online students. How do we submit a daily answer writing? I think they will inform you in the Telegram group. अपने बैच के जितने सारे ग्रुप सबने इन्फॉर्म कर देंगे. Tomorrow we will not have main answer writing. Tomorrow पहला lecture है. From day after tomorrow we will start submitting answer. ठीक है? Okay. Any other doubt? चलो दे. खास्ते नबाशित. थोड़ा सा I tend to speak lot of languages in class. कभी हिंदी, कभी तमिल, कभी संस्कृत, कभी फारसी, है ना? थोड़ा थोड़ा. हाँ? You have to learn. This is also sometimes some kind of hurdle for many people, that they know only their mother tongue and English. They are not exposed to diversity of languages. But in history, we have to have some basic flavor of various languages: Sanskrit, Pali, Prakrit, Farsi, Tamil. We have to have some exposure to some words. In the initial phase, it may appear little difficult, but it is not difficult at all. First round is over, you will find it very easy. Okay, चलो अब सच में रुक जाते हैं.